So, Mike, last week we had a wonderful Ravel recording.
Yeah, I remember that. Still listening to it myself, in fact.
That we both liked a lot.
Yeah, and, great sound.
Yeah, nice performances and fabulous sound. And it's one I'm thinking about purchasing, so I was looking online and getting a chuckle out of the reviews on Amazon.
What did they say? What could it possibly...
Well,
somebody said about that?
The negative reviews were not about the performance. They were about the recording.
Yeah.
Now, we thought the recording was fabulous, but they were complaining. So there was a couple that complained that they had to turn the volume up too high to hear the soft parts.
Oh, jeez. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So
soft parts are supposed to be soft. Oh man, everybody's losing their sense of what music is supposed to sound like now. It's driving me crazy.
The last vestige of the loudness wars, where we don't usually have to worry about too much compression, is in classical music. A lot of times in jazz too. And on that recording, which
it used to be jazz people were usually audiophiles. You know, they were even bigger audiophiles than classical people were, which is interesting. But now, you know, you get a lot of non-compressed jazz recordings still, but they're going that way now. They're trying to make it sound more like a pop record. I don't like that.
Yeah, multi-tracked, overdubbed, and then fiddled with. Whereas the best recordings, I think, are some of the ones done in one room back in the late 50s, early 60s. They still sound better than a lot of the new things.
Yeah, I really think that if jazz came back, if they really want jazz to come back, they got to start recording it in a single room like that again. Yeah. Just one take, leave all the mistakes in. Well, go for it,
That's how the Delvon Lamar organ trio records, no headphones, all in one room, and they leave the dirty bits in there. So I think that's what gives it the good vibe.
To me,
anyway,
that's jazz.
I thought that Ravel recording, that had just amazing dynamic range. And
I thought so too.
That was the cool part. Anyway, I just got a kick out of that.
Just turn your air conditioning and heating off and listen to it. You'll hear it properly. I can see how the heating, heaters would, the hum of those things would cover up the lower bits, the softer bits, but that was a pretty great recording, especially like at the end when they do Bolero, because it starts like as almost nothing and it's just this constant 15-minute crescendo. By the end, you really should be your hair should be blowing back.
Room to grow on that one. Anyway, listeners, joining us mid-thought, mid-conversation, you're listening to Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. This is Russ over here, and Mike's over there on that mic.
This is Mike over here. Yeah, Mike on the mic, as the Beastie Boys once said.
Yeah. We haven't done any Beastie Boys albums.
Usually. Well, they're done now, though. It's like they have gone the way of all the fine bands of the past. Got old, broke up. One of them passed away, too, which is sad.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll have some other, actually, we're not going to have anything beastly. We're going to have something more angelic this week.
Yeah, I guess so.
And we're up to episode 58. 58.
58, wow.
Here, getting close to 60. And, before we get going into our music that we focus on discussing here, which is usually classical, jazz. Sometimes we venture into something in between those categories, or a little bit world music kind of things that everything we'll talk about. If you're wondering what are they talking about, look in the episode description and you should find links to Spotify and Apple Music for everything we'll talk about. The first recording we're going to have this evening is another Hyperion release that's not available on streaming, but I'll give you the link.
They're a great label, though. I got to keep
a great label
talking about those albums. But
anyway, I'll give you a link to the Hyperion website. You can listen to the samples there if you want to.
We're going to have a Hyperion one next week again, though. So it's going to be listening to all this stuff. You're going to have to buy a lot of stuff, I guess, if you want to hear it.
Now, if you want to hear music in also CD quality and all of our music that we discuss here in one place, you can click the first link in the description, which is the playlist on Deezer, where I put everything into one playlist every week. You can also listen to the podcast there. So both the playlist and podcast are on Deezer, our preferred streaming platform, where you can look us up under Adult Music Podcast. Now, if you can't see the full description or list on whatever app or platform you listen to us on, because I know there's a lot of different ones people find us on, you can always come over to our host site, Podbean. That's Podbean, one word, and you find us there. All the links are easy to follow for every episode in the past and this one. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, please do follow or subscribe on whatever app or platform you're listening to us on. If you take a moment, give us a ranking, write a review. That helps us get listed in the recommended categories under the music areas on each platform, which helps us grow our audience, and we appreciate that a lot. You can also find us on Facebook. Just look us up, Adult Music Podcast. Yeah, we have a page there. You can message or comment. And if you want to send us something more direct, any comments or questions, we'd be happy to hear from you by email. Our email address is adultmusicpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com.
Yeah. All right. So anything happening this week before we launch into the first album here? I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Lots of releases in April in the jazz category, coming out left and right. And
ones coming out too.
Re-releases and unreleased things. I think there's a new Freddie Hubbard recording, never released from the 80s, that came out this week. I've got to listen to that.
And you had mentioned that Ravel recording too. That John Wilson, he just released that ensemble just released a new album on SACD again,
right.
Of music by, who was it? Franz Schrecker, and I think there's Richard Strauss and Eric Wolfgang Korngold. We're gonna have to hear that one when I finally get my hands on it, because I'm not gonna listen to this one from Deezer. I'm gonna want the SACD for this one, so I'm gonna do that. Oh, there's a new Wranitzky release we need to mention.
That's right, Wranitzky.
Yeah, we'll talk about that eventually, not next week, but soon. Okay.
Yeah, Orchestra Works 4, and it's a ballet pantomime. I think, and Daniel sent us the notes and score, and I guess there's hints in the score to what's going on in the movement and the scenes. So
I think it's good to have. I mean, one day I might actually sit down with the scores and work out what's
it might be helpful on this one. I listened to it once already in the morning, but I'll use those scores and guides to have another deeper listen soon.
Okay, well, let's jump in here, and I'm going to go with something a little. We have a fairly adventurous classical program this week, but we're starting sort of light with violin sonatas by Felix Mendelssohn. And these are on the Hyperion label, so you're only going to be able to hear samples of these on the Hyperion website. They're not on any streaming platform for some reason. Hyperion, one of the major small labels out there, or not small labels, you want to call them a boutique label. You got the giants, Deutsche Grammophon, Decca, and all those, and then you have all these boutique labels now, like Alpha, Hyperion, Chandos, all those. Okay, this is a violinist I happen to really like, Alina Ibragimova, on the violin, and Cédric Tiberghien on the piano. Her performing partner on many albums and concerts. Ibragimova is Russian, so I'm kind of, much as I'm against the whole Russian invasion of the Ukraine, I certainly don't want to see Russian artists being left out of the concert hall because of that. It seems really ridiculous to me. It wasn't really their decision, and they need to make a living. What
so really concerns me is that. Now they're canceling these people who won't publicly disavow Putin. Like they might have to go home again someday, and who knows where they'll end up if they do that. I wish they would leave artists and other public figures out of this conflict, but what can you do? Anyway, we get to hear Ibragimova. She's a fantastic violinist. She's based in London these days, I believe. Anyway, that's her home. Anyway. Felix Mendelssohn, Violin Sonatas. This is the latest in a series of recordings that she's made for Hyperion with Tiberghien on the piano. He's French, by the way. And they've all been fantastic, I just want to say. We actually talked about a record she made last year. It wasn't Isai. It was the other one, Paganini. Paganini,
solo
I remember that
ones,
one.
Yeah, we liked it, but I think we liked some of the older ones better. Anyway, this is Violin Sonatas by Mendelssohn. And these are not well-known works, but they're pretty great and they're pretty enjoyable. Felix Mendelssohn. Now remember, Felix had an older sister named Fanny Mendelssohn, who was also a composer and didn't have much of a public career because she basically wasn't allowed to because of her father and or their father and just the way things were done at the time. It wasn't, if you were like an upper class person and you were a woman, it was unbecoming for you to be in not performing, but in public life, say composing and things like that. Not a popular stance today. Anyway, we will have more women composers coming up on the program. Felix Mendelssohn, one thing that we need to really remember is that the Mendelssohns were a lot like the Mozarts, where Mozart had an older sister too, who was also a piano prodigy. But Mozart was one of the great prodigies of all time, as was Felix Mendelssohn. They're almost like parallel, these two families. Felix was a pianist, of course, a composer, as we all know. It's what we mostly know him for today. He was also an excellent draftsman and watercolorist. He was a poet. He was a translator. He could speak Greek, Latin, English, French, pretty good Italian, as well as his native German. And he also played the violin. Wow. See, this is why I think people don't like classical music, because they hear that these guys could do all these things and they're like, oh man, it's like everybody's Elon Musk over here or something. They just seem to be able to do anything they want. It's really amazing to me.
Wow.
There are a few people like that around today, but I don't know. I don't think we respect them as much anymore. He was also, as a violinist, he was a professional level violinist. He could have made a living doing that, but I don't think he would have been like one of the virtuosic ones like Paganini or somebody like that at the time. So he knew something about the violin. And he wrote several violin sonatas. Only one of them was published. The other three that are on this album were left in manuscript, including the first one that we hear, Violin Sonata in F major, MWV Q26 from 1838. All right. Well, we need that catalog number, though, because this one was never published, so it was only in manuscript, so there's no opus number for it.
Okay.
So that's one way to identify it. It's the biggest and the most mature of all the works on this album, and yet it was never published during his lifetime. Go figure. The reason why was because he was revising it, and I think he died before he finished revising the first movement. So there are two versions of the first movement, and on this album we're hearing the original version that he didn't revise because I guess it fits in better with the other two movements. Okay, this is the most ambitious of Mendelssohn's violin sonatas, and let's take a look. The first movement is pretty big, allegro vivace, so it's very fast and lively, and he starts out with this big burst of sound, and I thought, as is always the case with this duo, the playing is fantastic. These two are very sensitive to each other's playing, sort of like it's one of those one people, two heads sort of thing, or one head, two people. I don't know, but they seem to really pick up on what each other is doing really well. Of course, they've rehearsed this piece a lot, I'm sure. There's some really beautiful glittering runs that the two participate in. We get a repeat of the exposition in this movement. So when you hear all the two themes in this sonata movement, a sonata has two themes, which are then developed and then repeated at the end. The second one is in the same key as the first one at the end, but not at the beginning. All right, that's in a nutshell. That's what a sonata is. And oftentimes there'd be a double bar with two dots, and you'd have to repeat the opening so the people in the who are listening to this piece can get another listen to the themes before they start being developed. These are often skipped today because we have recordings, and if I think these days too, if you're playing a repeat, you kind of have to vary the material a little bit, so it takes a little bit of creativity. Ibragimova's tone, which I really like, is small, very expressive. It's very well fitted for chamber music. It feels very personal, like you're just having, like she's telling you all these like personal things. I really like that about her. It's not this gigantic tone like someone like Hilary Hahn has, where she's really, I feel like she's better in playing with an orchestra because she's always making these big kind of public statements in her playing. Or Isabel Faust is another one with a gigantic tone. Ibragimova is small, but it's really intimate, and I like that. It feels it's good to listen to. She's also a very athletic player in the bold opening theme, and so is Tiberghien. This takes a lot of this is pretty amazing. This is played at breakneck speed. Really, it's not too fast. It's the way it's supposed to be played. It's got good energy in the faster passages. The development section, if you have your scorecard, it starts at about 5 minutes and 36 seconds. Not that you're going to be able to go to Deezer and listen to it anyway. With a light violin melody over an even lighter piano. And the recapitulation seems to up the energy even further. Like it's almost like coming out of the development section, we get to the main theme, everything is familiar, we're all excited, and things just kind of go up a notch or something. It's pretty amazing. It's a pretty enthralling performance of a fantastically lively movement. A really nice surprise. For me, I had never heard this before. Second movement, Adagio. This is the slow movement. This follows the Baroque pattern. In fact, this is a classical work, but the Baroque pattern, fast, slow, fast, that Vivaldi set up years ago. So we have the slow song-like middle movement here. Again, these two performers work so well together. There's beautiful expression in the movement, and the piano recording in this I thought was a little odd, because I thought the piano at the lower end, it kind of lost its tone somehow in the recording. I don't think it was the pianist's fault. I should really listen again, though, before I kind of say that. Did you pick anything up like this in the...
Well, actually, it's not with the playing.
Not the playing.
It's with the recording or the mic placement. I found right from the first movement, the piano sound is a bit murky. And I also felt that the balance...
well, it wasn't clean like the
exactly.
Pogorelich, which we're going to hear later. Okay, we'll talk about that.
And I also felt that the balance is too piano heavy, and the piano gets lost in the tone of the piano, or the violin gets lost in the tone of the piano a little bit too much. I found her violin tone to be quite warm and sensitive, but it's small.
Yeah, like
and
I mentioned.
I just felt that in some places where obviously, this is a violin piece, and the accompaniment was sort of swallowing up the main line of the violin. And so I thought just the balance is off, and then the tonal quality of the piano is a bit odd. And that carries on throughout, although the later pieces I've found an improvement in both things. So.
In this particular piece, especially in the middle movement, I could swear that the piano was distorting in the louder passages. I wasn't really sure. I didn't put on the headphones to check that, but that's a danger with Ibragimova, and someone like her is of course going to have like the same partner all the time, just because they need to know to be sensitive around her. But I'd say, by the way, it's called a violin sonata, but this really is a sonata for violin and piano. The piano is an equal partner. It's got so many expressive and really important parts to play. It's not just accompanying. So I think this would be like, in the style of Beethoven, really. Mendelssohn was really under Beethoven's spell for most of his very short life. So, there's that. Okay, third movement and the final one, assai vivace, which means very fast. Assai is very. Lively virtuosic movement that requires the players to be in sync in the fast passages. Then they take those passages very fast indeed. And I thought they remained in sync. Very impressive playing. The music never stops. So there's no time for breath. So it was a pretty exciting final movement. Okay, moving onwards to tracks 4 through 6. This is Violin Sonata in F minor, Opus 4 from 1823. This is the only published violin sonata, the only sonata that Mendelssohn published during his lifetime. If you're cataloging these, it's MWV Q12. I don't even. That's a new marking. MWV something Verlag or something. Werke Verlag or something. Mendelssohn Werk Verlag, I imagine. I didn't even look that up. Anyway, so like the BWV for Bach, Bach Werk Verlag, yeah. Okay, this was written along with other works for Eduard Rietz, one of Mendelssohn's early violin teachers. How nice. Imagine that. You teach a kid the violin. Next thing you know, he's writing violin sonatas, dedicating violin sonatas to you. All right, this one starts out I think this is something that Beethoven started. It's got an introduction, which is played adagio, slow, and then there's a main section, the Allegro moderato, which is where the main themes all come in, the two themes that are then going to develop. And this one starts rather unusually with Ibragimova solo, playing solo, playing a poetic line in her lower range that reaches up toward the end. Okay? The pianist comes in at about 45 seconds in, and he gets a poetic line to play as well. We finally hear them play together just after a minute into the piece, which is kind of interesting. It's almost like they're two strangers wandering the woods, and then they sort of find each other at about a minute into the piece. The piano plays the second subject alone after 2 minutes, and then the violin joins in. So everybody gets a little chance. This movement comes across as amiable once the Allegro moderato starts. It's a little dark and sort of searching in the beginning, but then once the main section starts, it gets a little lively, and it's pretty. It's nice. It actually still sounds fairly slow during the Allegro moderato. It does say moderato, so it doesn't have to be very fast, but I thought it was a little slow. The piano is playing figures in the bass to give a sense of continuity. Even, I guess they get away with it because of that figure that the piano is playing. He's kind of connecting everything with the bass line. There's a recapitulation at 7 minutes in. It ends on a kind of weak cadence and sort of fizzles out. What they used to call a feminine cadence. God knows what they would call it now. Feminine cadence is not the strong,
that's the new masculine cadence.
That's the new masculine cadence. Is the feminine cadence. The feminine cadence was the one that kind of fades away. It doesn't sound strong and final, but it is still a cadence.
Does the girly boy cadence?
The girly boy cadence, maybe.
As Arnold would say. Oh boy. Oh, yeah, I don't know. We better not get canceled here. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, but if anybody's got their headphones on, I live near a big tourist area, and now the weather has changed to something. Today was a really beautiful day here in Kyoto, and there are just people walking outside my house throughout this podcast talking, so you can hear them in my headphones.
Oh.
So you probably can too. Or maybe it's just through the window and they're not being picked up by the mic. I don't know. So anyway, I'm right on the ground floor. Anyway, second movement, Poco Adagio. This is the slow movement. It's pretty typical of Mendelssohn, really. The beginning is all piano, meaning played by the piano, not soft piano. Okay. The violin repeats the theme with the piano accompanying afterwards. The material darkens after 2 minutes for the middle section, with the piano playing arpeggiated figures as the violin takes the melody. Third movement, Allegro agitato. The piano again introduces the theme by itself, solo. This happens a lot in this piece. It seems to be like a thing with him, with one instrument will kind of begin everything, and then the other instrument will just come in later. And then the violin repeats the theme with the piano when it finally comes in. It's a catchy theme that repeats like a rondo. And this is probably a rondo movement, in fact. Ibragimova sounds great throughout. Tiberghien has a lot of repeated notes to play and manages to make them and the rest of his material expressive. There's a lovely approach to the final cadence, which is a masculine cadence. And I like the brief ending notes, an appealing finale.
It's a big climax, very passionate at the end of this one.
Yeah. By the way, that's what a masculine cadence sounds like, if anyone's interested in knowing. The first movement is a feminine cadence. Beethoven often ends his works with feminine cadences. If you think of the Tempest Sonata, a lot of piano students will play that last movement with all the arpeggios, and it ends on a feminine cadence. Okay, tracks 7 to 9, Violin Sonata in F major. This is another unpublished one. It was in manuscript. This is MWV-Q7, written in 1820. So this is the earliest of the works written here. And this one's pretty conservative in the sense that it really sounds like he's following the instructions of an older kind of style. There are quirky progressions and interruptions reminiscent of C.P.E. Bach, one of our favorite composers. Yeah. And that especially happens in the third movement. This is a small work compared to the previous two. The first movement, Allegro, we can hear C.P.E. Bach's influence here a little bit, and mostly Beethoven's. It's brief. It's a brief movement at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The duo do a lot to make the piece expressive, manipulating tone on piano passages, and attenuating volume beautifully after a loud entry. The second movement, Andante, also pretty short. It's a theme. This is really unusual that this is short because it's a theme with 4 variations, alternating between minor and major. The theme is pretty square with clear, predictable cadences. The variations don't do much with the theme. This is pretty straightforward, nice, but not terribly interesting. There is a pretty variation with pizzicato in the violin and a creeping staccato approach by the piano, and it's a good performance by the duo, of course. Third movement, Presto, very fast, modeled on the principal theme of Haydn's Symphony 102. Of the 104 that Haydn wrote. Man, the sheer amount of music that some of these people turned out, they must have just been sitting at a desk all day writing. They had to have people copying stuff for them because they couldn't have possibly done all this by themselves.
I don't know.
Although,
I guess they weren't on Instagram back then, so.
Yeah. I mean, even now with computers, people can't produce music this fast. Okay, it starts out racing like a perpetuum mobile movement. You can hear most of the CPE Bach influence in this movement. There are a lot of unexpected pauses, and they happen kind of often, too, so you can kind of almost tell that he's using CPE as a model. All right, the last track is a fragment, probably from the late 1820s. This is called Violin Sonata in D. Now, it doesn't say major or minor because it kind of plays with both modes. We wouldn't really know. I guess if you did the other 2 movements, we'd know if it was mainly major or minor. But this is a Beethoven influenced. It starts very slowly with upward arpeggiated figures in the piano and long drawn out tones from the violin. It's very romantic in tone and feel. So this is getting away from the classical influence and more towards, the era that Mendelssohn lived in, the romantic. I mean, these were the people who created the romantic movement, Mendelssohn and his pals, Chopin and Liszt and Berlioz too. This has a kind of barcarolle feel to it. It's kind of a 6/8, kind of rocking sort of triplet rhythm, but the melody doesn't match that form. The accompaniment does. The melody doesn't sound like a barcarolle melody. A livelier theme does come after the slow opening. There's a contrasting, quieter theme. By now, I've warmed to the sound of the album and I'm enjoying the performance. Ibragimova is well recorded throughout, but I'm not sure that the piano is well captured. You can hear everything he's playing, though, so there's really no issue with clarity. It's just that the particular sound Tiberghien gets isn't being captured. It's a little blurry, I think, in the mix. You can hear everything, though, so the detail's all there. It's a really gorgeous blending of sound at the end of the movement. And it's odd that the disc ends this way. This movement ends and it feels like there should be more. And you're kind of sitting in your chair there and it's over and you're like, oh, I guess that's it. Okay, so this is an enjoyable, upbeat, cheerful album. Good for spring. Play it after your Wranitzky recording that we reviewed a few weeks ago. The oboe concertos one.
Yeah, I like the performances. Ibragimova's violin always sounds nice. She's got a pleasing tone, which I can't say for all violinists. But I always enjoy listening to her playing. It never really causes the hairs on my neck to stand up like some violinists do. Nice phrasing.
Yeah, she's got this really pretty tone. It's very attractive. I like her playing a lot.
It's not huge, but it is warm, and so I like it.
It's intimate. It's like I'm being whispered.
Yeah, it draws you in.
Things. Oh.
And mostly I think they play really well together. There's a couple places where I thought things might not be completely in sync, but I think it gets better as the recording goes on, actually.
Well, maybe we just got used to it, too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But...
In the F major sonata in the third movement there, in the very first part of it, I felt like something was not quite settled in. But after that, I felt more and more the synchronicity was getting better. The main thing that let me down on this is the sonics, like I said, with the piano tonal character and then the balance, which is kind of surprising for Hyperion. It actually shows up in some of the reviews. They all give the performance high ratings, but the sonics sound is a little bit lower in rating. So that's a little bit unfortunate. not up to the usual standards. I think
Hyperion generally gets it right,
Yeah, it's mainly apparent in the first piece, and then at the end, where the bulk of the middle I found, better balanced than other ones. So I don't know if it was a mic placement or not enough time to sort of sort things out in the recording process or whatever. But you can't fault the performances at all. They're really good with the material. And it's kind of interesting to see these unpublished pieces and then get the fragment at the end and imagine, what would have come next. I guess that's why they put it at the end. So you would, just imagine how the development and climax of that piece would have developed. But yeah, interesting program there anyway.
All right, now we're on to the
piece.
the album that I've been wanting to talk about all week. Okay. All right, this is an album of Chopin piano works by Ivo Pogorelich. He used to be the enfant terrible of classical music, and now he's the adult terrible, I guess. I don't know, but he's a very his playing is very iconoclastic. He really tries to sort of go against the grain when he records, and sometimes he's really, really spectacular. There are two recordings of his that I absolutely love. One of them is his recording of Scarlatti sonatas, and the other one is his recording of Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit and Prokofiev's Piano Concerto number. I don't remember which one. It was probably 5. I'm going to guess 5. It was either 5 or 6. I don't remember. But that was some spectacular playing on that. And he's always great. You can hear that this is a great pianist, but he'll often do odd things, especially in his Chopin playing. Now, Pogorelich doesn't record much, so this is a big event in the classical music world when it's kind of, it's sort of like when like Stanley Kubrick used to put out a movie. It gets that kind of buzz, because there just weren't that many of them.
Yeah, and it's on Sony, and it's available on streaming, which doesn't always go together. But more and more Sony is going to streaming platforms, so we can hear it.
And I think this is a new deal for Pogorelich because he was always on Deutsche Grammophon. This one's on Sony Classical, so maybe a new deal for him. Okay, let's give you a little bit about Pogorelich himself. He's Croatian. Born in the former Belgrade, Yugoslavia, when it was Yugoslavia, to a Croatian father and Serbian mother. I guess they didn't distinguish so much then, because the borders were open, I guess. I don't really know much about the history of that time. Anyway, he graduated from the Moscow Conservatory. Boy, we just keep getting into these Russian things. Okay, so in the Soviet days, he went to the Moscow Conservatory, and he's known for his unorthodox interpretations, which this entire album is.
Yeah, right? For sure.
So if you're a big Chopin fan, well, first of all, if you've never heard Chopin, if you don't know much about Chopin's music and you really don't know how it should be played, what it's supposed to sound like, steer clear of this disc for now. Come to it like after you know Chopin's music, because you're really not going to get it unless you've heard Chopin as he's ordinarily played. For those people, I would recommend Bruce Liu. Okay, Liu, his recent Deutsche Grammophon recording of he was the Chopin competition winner this year, and he created some real magic that's worth hearing. So give that a listen. But here we're going to get a really unorthodox approach. Okay, I was reading the program notes for this, and they say at worst, the way Pogorelich makes music is surprising. At best, disturbing. I would think that would be the other way around. I would think it'd be at best surprising and at worst disturbing. But that's not what the writer said here. Anyway, there you go. The music critic Joachim Kaiser wrote of Pogorelich, in extreme cases, Pogorelich plays along with the shock that many of the most important compositions in music history once caused. Chopin in particular is often done an injustice by pianists pleasingly over-romanticized interpretations. All right, now what Kaiser says there is true. Most pianists make Chopin into this really melodic, pleasing figure, and especially we live in Japan, and Japanese piano students play Chopin's music all the time, and they make it very sunny and melodic and nice, and it's got that in it, but it's harmonically it's also got a lot of darkness in it. And Pogorelich is gonna purposely err on the other side of that. We're gonna hear all the darkness and none of the light in these performances. All right, let's get on with this and see if I can put this across. Now you can hear this. It's on Deezer, and it'll be on Apple and Spotify and all of your ordinary streaming services. Let's see, the Nocturne in C minor, Opus 48, number 1, written in 1841. All of the works on this album are from the 1840s, when Chopin's health, he was never really healthy, but it was really deteriorating. And it's really after his glory days of the 1830s, which was the golden age of piano playing. It's really when the piano became the instrument it is today. I mean, it still had to improve over the rest of the 19th century, but the piano as a solo instrument and as the instrument of the musical poet and all that stuff happened in the 1830s, and it was because of Chopin, Mendelssohn, and Liszt, and other pianists as well, but those were the three main guys. Chopin's compositions, Liszt's playing and compositions, and also Chopin's playing as well. And Mendelssohn too, virtuoso, child prodigy that he was. All right, now, this Nocturne in C minor, very slow opening, very dramatic, and lots of spaces left. This is really, it's a beautiful piano sound, but the piano he's using kind of sounds a little, like it's ill or something.
I told you what I thought of this, right?
What did you say? I forgot.
I said it's as if he's playing on another planet that has a heavier atmosphere and more gravity than our own planet. You know?
It could be. It's slower, so you
somehow,
get that gravity
it's not
feeling,
just that. Yeah, it's not like you get the feeling that he's playing the piece slow. It's that as he's fighting some external force that is putting more resistance against, the keys or something like that. That's the feeling I got. It's really something very different than someone who would just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to play this slower than usual. That's not the effect at all. It's sort of like he's created this force of resistance to the performance that gives it a quality that you've never really heard before. And once he overcomes that force, the piano takes the full brunt of his force. So it's very interesting, which contrasts with the ending of it, which is rather soft. Just talking about this piece here. So
this particular piece, so he's playing this, the accompaniment. Usually these nocturnes of Chopin start with an accompaniment, this arpeggiated bass, and then he plays his first melodic note, and it has this real rattle to it. It's not this beautiful pearly sound. It kind of sounds like something in the piano is damaged or something. Now, it made me think Mozart died of what they called consumption, which we know is tuberculosis. A lot of people died of this in the 19th century. And the piano sounds a bit consumptive, or like it has TB in this sound. Now, That's not a negative criticism. This is obviously what he wants, and he does get a beautiful sound though in his touch. He's got a really astonishing palette of sounds he can create.
I did read one review of this that noticed that rattle or metallic nature to the notes too.
Yeah,
and he's just sort of surmised that it might be they've got it very closely mic'd, because there are some places on this recording where he purposely plays things super softly. And he wanted those parts to be captured. And so, the placement of the mic might be a little bit different than normal. And that's why it's picking up these kind of metallic extra sounds, non-musical sounds from the piano.
Yeah, extra musical, shall we say. Yeah, touch is a big part of Pogorelich's playing, if you've been listening to him. He plays this as a haunting piece. It's usually played as something pretty. The nocturnes, the nauseating things people say about Chopin's nocturnes. Chopin dipped his pen in moonlight and composed the nocturnes, gag me, okay? They're really not. They are dark pieces, you know? They are dark. There's a lot of darkness in them, but there's a lot of beauty in them, too. They have gorgeous melodies, these gorgeous singing melodies to them as well. But they're over an abyss, and I think we need to recognize that in a lot of the cases. This piece moves so slowly that it's actually ghostly. There's an emptiness to the spirit of the work in this approach. And my comparison, you had said heavier gravity, outer space, but I said it sounded like this work was cloned, and he's examining the body parts so that he can have them transplanted into the deteriorating parts of the original work, I guess.
The science fiction stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of science fiction stuff in this. I'm hearing this as a kind of science fiction performance, The middle section is equally slow with lots of space. It's got a beautiful tone, as we would expect from this pianist, really. But there's a heaviness to the trudging style that negates the beauty of the tone. The piano is recorded close up, as Russ mentioned earlier, and we hear the heavy fortissimo chords leading back to the opening section. The piano strings have a certain rattle to them, as though it's being played on an antique piano. Gorgeous touch and beautiful pianissimo on the ending chords. Okay.
Very soft.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it really is astonishing. This is the kind of thing that would have just made all the ladies melt in the audience, except that the whole piece was so haunting that it probably wouldn't have registered that way if they actually heard it in a concert hall. All right, I'm talking about the 19th century ladies, in Chopin's time, in their corsets and stuff. Anyway. Second track, Nocturne, is another Nocturne. This is the second one. This is only a 7-track album. There are only 4 pieces on it. The second one is a Nocturne, again, another shortish piece. E major, Opus 62, number 2. This is, it's his last Nocturne to be written, apparently, but not the last to be published. Because after he died, they kept publishing them. Because he had a lot of them in manuscript that he never published. Actually, not a lot, a few. Again, played very slowly. This whole album is taken at a slow pace, so you really have to focus and be calm when listening to it. It's not going to lift you up. It's not designed to do that. This particular Nocturne is more lyrical than the first one that we heard. It starts like an early Chopin Nocturne, as though Chopin himself were looking back to his earlier nocturnes, but then the music suddenly quietens after the first cadence at around 1:15 seconds, and the harmony starts to darken. Pogorelich gets a lot out of this, weighing his notes and tempo carefully to get maximum payoff for his vision. These weighted notes are really a special part of his playing here too. He goes for something tentative as the bass line starts to move. He plays it like an alternate melody as in a double fugue rather than as contrasting accompaniment. The opening comes back with some changes in the harmony. The volume drifts off into the very quiet towards the end, and we get a repeated note in the final minutes that's played to sound like a tolling of a bell, sort of, I guess, a funeral bell. The tempo emphasizes that bell sound, and the ending comes across as deeply touching. Okay, track 3. This is a big single movement piece, the Fantasy in F minor, Opus 49. And this piece typifies the dark, broken quality that Pogorelich sees in Chopin's work from the 1840s. From the notes, I get the opening march theme refers to Karol Krupinski's protest song, Litvinka, the Lithuanian, which was popular with Polish troops during Chopin's lifetime. This piece it's 16 minutes long, and it's usually over 10 minutes when it's played, in a normal way, in the way that it's come down to us, let's say, by posterity. This is also taken slowly with great attention to the weight of tone and detail. It starts very quietly and carefully. There's a funeral march quality to the material. In the first 3 minutes, you have that dum, dum, da-dum kind of rhythm, just like in the funeral march in his second piano sonata, in Chopin's second piano sonata. Flourishes, arpeggiated flourishes, I guess, are heard at around 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and the material changes. We hear those rattling notes in the top end of the piano here. Most of the piece has been in the lower end up to the 3 minute and 45 second mark. And I think, the metallic quality, I don't think it's the recording only. I think it's the way Pogorelich is striking the key, bringing that quality out of the piano, because we don't always hear it. And he's playing this note in other works. He's got to be. And especially in fast figuration, we don't get that sound. At 4 minutes and 40 seconds and after, we hear a skating quality familiar to Chopin's music, which Pogorelich executes brilliantly. Think of I think it's the second scherzo or the third, I can't remember which one, but it has a lot of this sort of quality to it. The figuration is all played with immaculate technique, but with an occasional ugly tone that sticks out, and again, that is intentional. The build starting around 5 minutes and 30 seconds is taken deliberately and doesn't build excitement, which it normally does. It just leads to the next section, and that quality is intended, as I said. This is a virtuosic piece, but it's being played so that the virtuosity isn't what's drawing the ear. He wants the harmony. Pogorelich wants the harmony to draw the ear, the darkness of this piece. After 6 minutes, there's a plodding quality to the quarter note chords, but the attention is so precise that tension isn't released. So you think about if you're kind of like balancing yourself on a bike, and now people can balance themselves on stationary bikes, but the bike in the old days, if you're an ordinary person who rides a bike like me, the bike has to be moving at a certain speed unless it will tip over, so he keeps it at this speed that it doesn't tip over, or he's just one of these amazing people who doesn't release the tension.
I have a very non-musical word for how it gets in here. I called it gooey.
Gooey? Okay.
It's sort of the space between the movement of notes becomes like viscous.
Yeah, okay.
Like, this is interesting. I'll give a food analogy. The Japanese have a texture description of food that's called neba neba.
Uh-huh.
It's gooiness, right? And so one of the things they have in Japan that a lot of people like is okra. And the other one is yamaimo, which is mountain potato. And they're very kind of starchy foods that when you lift them up, they have a goo that sort of sticks back to the plate. And so it's hard to get them separated against. And in addition to in the beginning of this piece, I felt that same kind of multiple gravities weight. And after he comes down softly in the middle, it does pick up a lot of motion again. And then to me, it gets caught in this sort of goo that it's very interesting how he injects this into the phrasing, but it's nothing in the instrument itself. It's all in how he adjusts his touch to getting through the rhythms of the material, and it must be some kind of concept, in his phrasing that he's able to get this kind of. I feel like it's not like playing underwater, but in a thicker atmosphere kind of thing. And I've never heard anything quite like this with this material. So, and then
it really is unique.
It changes again because, when he gets to the end, it gets extremely soft, and he has some very interesting pauses once he gets out of that kind of thick atmospheric thing. So it's really interesting how he creates these different sort of environments of touch and movement to go through on this piece.
Yeah. The slow quality, by the way, takes away the breathless quality of the playing at around 7 minutes and afterwards. The energy just dissipates after that. Parts that sparkle in other pianists playing don't sparkle here. It's really amazing, yeah? At 8 minutes and 45 seconds, we get very slowly played chords connecting a melody. Listening to this 16-minute piece played like this requires some serious attention on the part of the listener. So I want you out there to think about that before you turn this on.
It's not, as you said, there's not a lot of pieces on this album, but you'll be completely exhausted at the end.
It is exhausting. I was exhausted after I heard it. I did like it. I mean, I'll give my review at the end, but it's not. I'll explain what I thought at the end, actually. I would suggest you don't doze off while listening, because this piece might inspire dark dreams the way it's played here, So keep yourself awake, because somebody might, some terrible thing might happen to you in your dreams or something. There's a burst of speed at 11 minutes and 30 seconds, but that's compared to what we just heard. It's still slow and eschews the virtuosity we usually get here. As we head to the final climax, tension is built up very slowly in the 13th minute. A lot of the tension is eschewed too. I use this word a lot in this particular recording. Eschew. It's like just, yeah, eschew, I guess it's pronounced. I kind of like it. I eschew the whatever. Let me get a definition so I can be exact. Yeah, deliberately avoid using something. You eschew it.
That kind of idea that he has certain kind of parameters that he's decided, things he's not going to do that are normally associated with the performance. Too. Yeah, you can kind of understand that.
Yeah. As we head to the final climax, tension is built up very slowly in the 13th minute. And a lot of that tension is eschewed too. That's your new word for today, everybody. It was my new word this week. I've never said it before. I've read it a million times. So I had to look up how to pronounce it. Eschew. Eschew. Just to make sure. Yeah, eschew. Eschew. But there's enough tension built up that there's a release at the end. The ending is also played slowly and deliberately, but with beautiful tone on the figuration leading up to the final chords. Pogorelich sacrifices tension for darkness of tone, really. Okay, tracks 4 through 7. You want to say anything else about that before I go on?
No.
Okay.
That's
all right.
Good about it.
All right, so tracks 4 through 7 are Piano Sonata number 3 in B minor, opus 58. This is one of my favorite piano pieces in the world. I really love this one. And this was I was very interested in this performance of it because of the detail that came out because of the way he plays it. It was pretty amazing, but it's not kind of, needless to say, it's not going to be my go-to performance because it's just so weird. All right? And I actually wrote the word in my notes, man, this is slow. This whole album is really slowly played music. This music is usually not played this slowly. Okay? Some variety would have been welcome on the album, I have to say, just to kind of, give us a little bit of a rest from this. It really just feel like gravity is turned up here, like we're on, like you said, another planet, like we're on Mars, and we're being pulled to the surface by the force of the stronger gravity there. In this case, in this performance, each note is carefully weighted and heard, and there are a lot of pedaling and sort of hemiola type patterns. Hemiola is like different times against each other, like you have 3 in one hand and 2 in the other, or you're playing like 2 eighth notes in a 3 in a triplet kind of melody rhythm or things like that. That's a hemiola. So there's a lot of that sort of thing in this piece, and it makes it gives the pianist has to make a lot of decisions as to how he's gonna play them. I would have loved to have heard how Chopin himself played it. Pogorelich though definitely has a vision for this, and we do hear each note very well. This performance winds up being pretty interesting, intellectually speaking. There's a lot of intricate detail. Pogorelich makes sure we hear all of it. That is not the case with normal performances of this piece. I rather enjoyed the detail. A lot of it usually gets lost in the virtuosic playing of the pianist. I liked the brief pause before the bass note that anchors the second lyrical theme. There's 3 in the bass, and then the melody on the right hand is playing kind of against that. It's slow here, but its beauty can't be taken away. It's just not as melting as we often hear it. I appreciated hearing the accompanying left hand so clearly during that theme. And the tension dissolving beautiful figuration from 3 minutes and 30 seconds on is beautifully played with the lightest gossamer of tone. The repeat, controversial as it is, I wonder if people complained about how soft some of this was, because it was pretty quiet at parts. The repeat isn't taken here, like I had mentioned before that in the Mendelssohn the repeat was taken. Here he skips the repeat. It's pretty controversial because the beginning of this piece, is very long as it is. So to hear it all again would take a really long time and makes the movement very long. So he skips the repeat of the material and goes into the development section. We're into the development section at around the 5-minute mark. There's something icy and marmoreal. There's a good word for you, too. Marmoreal. About the rock-like it's kind of like going to be there forever. About the recollection of the opening chord patterns in the recapitulation. They're slower here. The development section is very, very short in this piece. It's a really odd movement, really. The themes are all slower when they repeat, and despite this, tension and the through line of the movement is kept up. Amazingly enough, it's quite a stunt. At 7 minutes and 30 seconds, there are a lot of interesting pauses where there generally aren't any. In the lead up to the second theme, I actually liked the approach to the lyrical second theme, as I mentioned. Here we're hearing it in the key of the piece, B minor, I'm guessing, in this case. I think he's probably going for the tonic there. I do not have perfect pitch, as you may have noticed. The climax isn't dramatic, and the movement simply ends with the lightest of releases of tension. All right, second movement. This is the scherzo, played molto vivace. This is all figuration, and then it's got a lyrical middle section. So the openings and closing section, the A sections, the form of this movement is A, B, A. So A is one type of music, and then the B section, it's like a sandwich. A would be the bread, B would be the whatever's in the middle of the sandwich. Okay, so the A sections of this movement have virtuosic figuration, and what's interesting here are Pogorelich's accenting of the higher end of the wave of figuration. It's almost like this swelling wave, and he makes a crescendo at the top end and then pulls it back as he goes, like it's something stretching out and then being slowly released. The middle section is slow and a bit slower than normal, but again, gorgeous detail. You get the feeling of momentum maintained despite the slow tempo. The bass note is bounced off of to launch into the repeat of the opening figurative material. All right, the third movement. This is my favorite movement of one of my favorite works. So I was all ears when this came on. This is the largo. It's very slow. There are long pauses after the second of the two quick chords that open this movement. The normally slow melody is taken even more slowly than usual. My favorite section starts at 3 minutes and 24 seconds. This is the middle. It's played very lightly here with all of its richness of harmony easily audible. It's a bit slow, but it usually sounds something like this. It's all very quiet once the connecting arpeggio figures stop. I absolutely love the way the turn to the bold major at the 6-minute mark comes across as brief sunshine that then quickly disappears. It's a great effect that is well put across here. That is a pretty amazing thing. Chopin briefly goes into the major, and it's a magical moment in the movement. But Pogorelich really makes sure this registers extremely well. Like you hear it, and it just sounds like something opening up, and then suddenly it just bang, it's gone right away. Really nice. 6-minute mark. Listen to that. The opening section of this ternary form movement returns at the 9-minute mark after a prolonged transition from the lyrical middle section. The quietness of this entire album is really raising my senses to spider sensitivity by this point. Did you notice that yourself?
Yeah. It's well, when we get to the end, I give you my overall impression.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more movement left. Here we go. Fourth movement, finale, presto non tanto. The opening chords of this movement usually come crashing out, but Pogorelich plays them as a crescendo. He starts quietly and builds them, and not a very loud crescendo either. The 6/8 rhythm of the main theme is played deliberately so that it rather lopes instead of sails. Yeah, because it usually sounds like dun 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 dun. There's that dotted rhythm, dun 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 dun. But he kind of has it more like loping, like it's like some kind of like dog or something instead of a. I don't know what the other animal would be. Maybe a ship or something. It's on the ground rather than the water. That's the way I describe the rhythm of this. Usually it's on the water. Here it's on the ground. Some really astonishing technique in the very fast, pearly scales after 1 minute and 20 seconds. With the rhythmic figures clearly discernible in the left hand. I love the figuration from 3 minutes and 20 seconds or so onwards. It's so clear, beautifully executed. Again, the rhythmic figures in the left hand are clearly heard as well. We don't really get the sense of tension building from the pianist's approach, though build it does. I actually wound up with a smile by the end of this movement. Something had come across. I couldn't tell you what it was, but definitely something on a deep level registered for me to react like that. I guess it was all the amazing virtuosity and clarity of what's in the score. The performance works, though it's hardly orthodox. Okay, here we go. I've been looking at some of the reviews of this album, and the thing is, with critics, there are some people. Pogorelich really does invite like people who love his playing and people who hate his playing. And there's no one in the middle, and I always kind of like to be in the middle, unless I really like or don't like something, of course. But I can't. Okay, this isn't an album you're going to cherish unless you're like a big fan of Pogorelich himself, in the sense of loving it for its beauty. It's because it's so dark and kind of like, sort of not foreboding, but it's kind of like pushing you away a little bit. Unusual for Chopin's music. I mean, you may love it for its probing quality. If you're like the intellectual side of music, this might be for you. This album goes for something different. It's not an approach that generates excitement. In fact, it deliberately avoids excitement as far as I'm concerned. It's a soul-searching record that I might return to in my darkest or most lucid moments, whether those two things be opposites or the same. Okay, so when you're when the world is ending and you kind of like want to contemplate something, this might be a good album to put on for that. It's playing that informs the soul, even if the soul might reject what it says. Given the time of life it's being heard. Okay, so if you're younger, I think if you're older, you might like this better than if you're younger. It's a deep album. These are successful interpretations of these works. But they lose a lot in building and release of tension. You might not find them appealing. I wouldn't call them appealing, but they're not intended to be that in these performances. To listen to when you're sad and want to know the meaning of life, I would say, for this album. It's provocative, and it's genius piano playing that a lot of people aren't going to like.
Yeah, well, I thought they're definitely interesting interpretations, sometimes quite startlingly beautiful. I found a lot of the passages, just the way that he's interpreting different things that will make you notice certain things that may get glossed over that he decides are going to be highlighted in there. And I noticed them kind of in a fresh way, because I've heard all these pieces before, some of them more than others, but never quite like this. And then in contrast, there's some sections that are laborious. They're kind of getting worn out. So it's a bit exhausting making it to the end of this recording. But my overall feeling is, why not, if you're going to record these pieces again, if you don't have something new or interesting to add to them, I mean, there's any number of fabulous recordings of these by great pianists to listen to. So obviously he has the conviction that he's finding something else in these pieces that he wants to highlight, or that have, gets glossed over in the pursuit of, technical virtuosity or something else. And so I think that's a worthwhile pursuit. And, in classical music, I guess all genres of music where people are working with, sort of a repertoire, you're going to be prone to the same type of conventions, right? And you're going to have people who stick to the script and, turn out a technically impressive performance, but there's, nothing artistically new here. And, those will make up the bulk of the recordings. And once in a while you'll get someone who goes out on a limb and tries something a little bit different, and not everyone's going to like it. And that's fine. I found these interesting. There's some, quite impressive and astonishing things in here as well. And it'll make you reconsider your conception of, what Chopin's music is like. So, yeah, definitely worth a listen. You might actually, I doubt that, like you said, this will be your definitive Chopin, but it'll make you think about these compositions in a different way. And where I sometimes wondered, why is he playing this part like this? It was still kind of interesting that he could sort of get a new concept in a section and create these, like I say, illusions of gravity or
yeah, he's remarkable. He's
the varying of touch and the attention to dynamics. He's doing this all with a purpose, in what he wants to convey through these pieces. So, yeah, actually, all the reviews I looked at are mostly quite positive.
Yeah, but some people really just hate him, and they're just going to write a terrible review,
That's going back like 40 years ago when he
they're still holding this,
he's barred from the Chopin competition or whatever.
That's an interesting story. He was eliminated from the I guess it was the Chopin competition. I don't remember which one it was, but he was eliminated in a Chopin in a competition before the final round. And Martha Argerich was on the board, one of the great pianists of the 20th century, and she's still with us too. It was on the board of that. She was one of the judges, and she walked out of the competition as a result because she recognized Pogorelich's genius.
Yeah, I guess so. The final word is, I would rather listen to this than another cloned performance of these.
I wouldn't want to hear a clone performance, but like pianists I love, like Stephen Hough, and like I mentioned the recent Bruce Liu recording. Yeah. Incidentally, Bruce Liu has just signed a deal with Deutsche Grammophon, so he's probably going to be recording more Chopin pretty soon. So we'll be hearing some from him. But his playing really sparkles. He plays them in a traditional way, but he manages to get some kind of sparkle and energy out of them that makes the pieces seem fresh again, and that's a real miracle too. Yeah, but we'll talk about him when we get the new recording. I didn't want to do the one that Deutsche Grammophon released from the Chopin competition, even though it was great. But I want to see what he's going to do for his first program in a studio.
Yeah. Anyway, take a listen. Whether you like it or not, you'll find it interesting. I liked it a lot. So
yeah, not for Chopin newbies, please. You'll just get the wrong idea. All right. Anyway, our third and final classical recording.
Where are the jewels? Oh, the hidden gems. Here they are.
They hid them.
Yes, in the Netherlands, but we found them.
I guess. Haven't brought them to the jewelers yet, and now I'm going to have to examine them.
Authenticate them, yes.
We've got to authenticate them right here on the Adult Music Podcast. Okay, this album is called Dutch Hidden Gems, and these are works by Dutch composers from the 20th century. Some of them still living, some of them pretty young, in fact, that I personally have never heard of any of them. So I always love finding recordings like this because it's just all new music. I feel like, by the time I die, I want to have heard like every piece of music ever written from the beginning of time.
Well, you live forever.
I know, right? I don't know. I hope we get to keep listening somehow afterwards. Anyway, okay, called Dutch Hidden Gems. This is a project by the violist Dana Zemtsov, or Dana. I don't know. I'm going to guess Dana Zemtsov on the viola, not the violin. So we're going to get a darker tone here, which is rather welcoming because we don't hear enough of the viola as a solo instrument.
That's for sure.
And accompanying her, we have in some works is Anna Fedorava, piano. Man, I bet she's Russian too. It's funny. I'm wearing this. I wore this T-shirt out yesterday. It's blue and yellow, the Ukrainian colors, but I didn't realize that it's a shirt that I got as a present for being on a Japanese TV show once. They interviewed me and they gave me the shirt as a present, and the show is no longer on Japanese TV. It's Guruto Kansai Ohiro Mae, it's called. I didn't
know you were on TV.
Just that one. This is in the 2000s. I might not even have known you at the time. But it was just like it was just like an interview thing. This friend of mine had a friend, Japanese woman, who had just started as a producer on this show, and she needed she wanted to go out and interview foreigners about Japan, and she went to Osaka Castle, and there were no foreigners there. So she called me and asked me if I could help her. So I just walked by pretending that I was there.
It was staged.
Just minding my business. But no, It was staged by me, but I don't think she knew it.
Okay.
But they did give me this T-shirt, but it happens to be blue and yellow, and everybody says, "Oh, you support the Ukraine." I was like, "Well, that's not why I'm, wearing this shirt. I just put it on. It was just happened to be the Ukrainian flag colors." I'm really getting in all kinds of trouble these days. I don't know. Between Ukraine and Russia and all this stuff.
We don't associate any of our musical picks with anything political or any leaders.
We don't. Yeah,
because we don't support any of those leaders of any country. We're just interested in the music.
We don't support the leaders of any country, basically. I mean,
we're just interested in the music.
Yeah. Not only that, we're in our 50s. We're too jaded to actually think that a political leader can be a hero.
I don't trust any of them.
I
don't trust any of them. I won't vote for any of them.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Anyway, let's get back to the hidden gems.
Because these are the people we care about, the musicians, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're Russian, whether they're Ukraine. Fantastic. We love them all. Okay. Dutch hidden gems. Anna Fedorava on the piano and the Phion Orchestra conducted by Shizuo Kuwahara, who I believe is Japanese.
This sounds pretty Japanese to me.
Yeah, it's a Japanese name anyway. And this is on the Channel Classics label. Okay.
Is that Channel or Chanel?
It's Channel. It's a British label. No, it's actually a Dutch label. No, Channel is a Dutch label. Sorry.
You got to pronounce it differently. You say it Channel.
There might be a Dutch way to pronounce it.
Chanel. Yeah. I thought it was more fashionable.
Two ends.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, but it's
two ends.
They use the word classics too, so it's English. Channel Classics.
It's classics.
Channel Classics.
Channel. Well, you got to say it with your British accent, not with your Staten Island accent.
No, it's a Dutch label.
Oh. I don't know how to do that.
It's not British.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I guess they would just speak English for that part.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway. Okay, so some Dutch music here. For me on this album, the first work was the most interesting, I thought. This is by Henk Badings. Now, please, I don't speak Dutch. I'm not going to know how to say any of these. Badings. I don't know. Henk Badings. Maybe. He lived from 1907 to 1987, and this is his viola concerto from 1965, the year I was born, in fact. So there, I just told everybody my age. There you go. As people aren't going to send me those nude pictures of them anymore. Anyway.
I hope not, because I don't want to see them. Not if they're from the same same prehistoric era as
maybe
you.
The people who send them to me are going to change now. I don't know. That's the thing. It's going to go up in age years or something.
They'll be black and white.
I like those, though. The black and white ones.
Okay.
They're arty. They're
retro.
arty.
Yeah, arty.
Yeah. They're as old as the music I love, okay? No, just kidding. Okay. Anyway, Badings. I'm going to go for Badings. I'm just going to guess. I doubt it's Badings. Okay. He was a prolific composer, writing over 700 works. How do people do this? I
don't know.
Okay, including 15 symphonies and 48 concertos.
Wow.
48.
Wow.
Wait, he was 80 years old when he died. Okay. Or 79. He died like in his 80th year. The viola concerto uses a 31-tone note temperament, which we first hear in the subsidiary theme of the first movement. Okay, the way this works is that the viola, the solo instrument, plays it in its 12-note temperament. Now, this doesn't mean it's 12-tone music. No, it means that there are 12 notes available to the violinist. So they're probably he's not using keys here, but he's not following any kind of pattern with the 12 notes. What he means is just the ordinary 12 notes of the that are available to Western music. And then after that, he's got a choice of 31 notes, which means all these like quarter tones and this sort of thing. The sort of thing you hear in like Indian music, or in Bartók used it, and Harry Partch famously wrote a lot of like sort of note pieces with quarter tones and all these odd tunings for Western music. Anyway, this movement is quasi lento. It starts with the 12-note temperament in the main theme. And then when we hear the orchestra, so you want to listen for this introduction, you hear the 31-note temperament. You'll notice it because it sounds really kind of dissonant and odd. And I really enjoyed that sound. I was like, oh, yeah, when I heard it, Okay, we hear triplets, and then we hear the 12-note theme return. Let me see here. I said that The viola has a luscious dark tone in its opening theme. The work doesn't sound tonal, but it doesn't sound like dodecaphonic music either. Judging by the string chord we hear after the viola's opening. Okay, the string chord is like the 31-note temperament. The viola's theme is melodic, despite its using whatever the notes are. It's a pretty melodic tone. The rest of the ensemble is providing the dark profile of the piece in its 31-note system. I called this movement haunting. There's a lot of space. The ensemble is well recorded with pianissimi registering clearly. This is, again, you got to listen to this in a quiet room.
Yeah, this was interesting. At the beginning, to me, it sounds like a beehive of buzzing or something. Something weird going on there. And then, like you say, you'll hear those vacillating pitches in the string accompaniment that give that eerie quality. But there's also a section where the viola goes through, after you've gotten used to these sort of interpitches that we don't normally hear. Then the viola, there's a theme that's almost like pentatonic in very contrast, to these the
subtones. Microtones.
Yeah, and that's done over a kind of pizzicato backing of the orchestra, and so it gets a really almost like folk nature to it in contrast, and then the whole piece has a very interesting final resolution to it. So, yeah, kind of a lot of unexpected things pitch wise in this one.
Yeah, I thought the first movement was pretty intriguing, with some ear-scrambling yet painless harmonies. Now, when you hear microtones, it's kind of like somebody put one of those egg scrambler things in my ear or something and just went, and that's what you're hearing.
Well, it's all where they lead to, right? I mean, it's like any kind of music. You can build tension with an unexpected harmony, or even, in between pitches that you're used to. But where does it go to after that is how you're going to, feel after it. So it all depends on the voice leading and resolution, I think.
Yeah. What do I want to say? The thing about microtones, because we hear them as chords here, like as parts of a chord. And it's really weird to hear them like that. If you hear because Indian scales use a lot of these, they're not quarter tones to the Indian system, but if we kind of compare it to the Western system, it is. But when you hear them there, they're kind of part of that musical scale. So you're not ever hearing it as part of like a Western chord. So when they play them like this, it's really strange. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. There's an adagio movement. It's an ABA form. Let me see. Boddings does the haunting quality well. There's a ghostly theme in the strings to start the movement, and the viola comes in with a heartfelt melody. The low strings come in briefly, and they're done by 3 minutes and 30 seconds of this 6-minute and 26-second movement. The rest is just the higher strings. Kind of interesting sounds. And Allegro molto, the last movement, is a rondo in a polymetric 2/4 and 3/8 time, which are two kind of odd time signatures to combine. The theme is in 3/8, and the 2/4 is the accompaniment in 2/4. And the violinist bounces the bow off the strings to begin the rhythm for the final movement. The 3/8 theme plays across the 2/4 of the orchestra, and the viola's rondo theme is catchy and easy to recognize when it returns. One wonders, though, if this movement could have been played at a quicker tempo. Now, we've never heard it before, but I feel like the heaviness of the viola's sound sounds like, maybe it's just the heaviness of the viola's sound, but it sounds like it's a little slow. And maybe the orchestration prevent that. It sounds like there's some rhythmic excitement in there that we're not quite getting. I said about this piece that it's listenable. It doesn't move much. And the movements are slow, probably due to its harmonic weight. I kind of felt like listening to this piece. It was interesting, but it was kind of like watching a brontosaurus lumber by in slow motion, just heavy, just this big tread. It's slow and heavy, and something you've never heard before, too. So you've never seen a brontosaurus. The performance and recording emphasizes the sonic detail over the structure, though the structure is clearly recognizable, which is no bad thing. I kind of was interested in hearing this piece. I rather liked it. I don't know. I think I can't fault the performance for being slow or heavy, because I think that's just the way the performance has to be given the way it's composed. So I think this is a pretty realistic interpretation of this work, or the way that it would have sounded in the composer's ear.
Yeah, the final movement is more animated than the first two, but you're still left with somewhat of a dark. The overall impression I get is a little bit of darkness from the tone, and as you say, it's not working with conventional harmonies, but it creates a somewhat darker atmosphere tonally, and that's sort of the lasting impression I got from it, despite the motion in the third movement.
All right, now here's where my issue with the program comes in, because the opening work it's the biggest work on the disc, and it probably should have been saved for last, because we're hearing these like 31 note kind of temperament chords in this 31 note temperament, and it's really beguiling for the ear. And then once this piece ends, the rest of the program is just ordinary. So you kind of feel like you've heard all the really unique original stuff right away, and then you're just going to hear these other things that aren't going to register as strongly. The fourth track is work by Arne Werkman, Pavan for viola and string orchestra. Now, right away, when you see a 20th century work, or maybe even a 21st century work, I didn't get the year for this one, that's called Pavan. A Pavan is really a Baroque era dance. It's very old. So this is a piece that's going to sort of reflect the past. Okay, this is the famous Pavan by Ravel for the solo piano. So you always sort of have that in your ear too when you're kind of thinking, when you see this word. Okay, Werkman was born in The Hague but grew up in Geneva and France. The stately dance is noticeable via its motoric movement, say the notes. The viola plays a sad, darkly toned theme in its lower to mid-range over a cloudy string harmony in the ensemble. The accompaniment moves back and forth like a gas contained in a beaker. I kind of like trying to expand, but finding no space to do that. I feel like it's moving, looking for that opening so that it could burst out. I rather enjoy the accompaniment gentle slashing after 2 minutes and 30 seconds, highly appealing, after which it settles into the contained gas sound again. The piece is slow and lugubrious, really too heavy for a Pavan, in my opinion. Which isn't really light to begin with. It's slow, but I thought this was kind of had a heaviness to it. Again, the viola is a heavy sounding instrument, though, because we associate it with the violin, which is really light and sprightly. The viola doesn't really do that. Okay, next we have Jan Coetzee, Concertino for viola and orchestra, composed in 1940. Coetzee lived 1911 to 2006. By the way, the previous composer was born in 1960 and is still among us today. Okay, Coetzee died in 2006, though. Coetzee spent most of his life in Germany, where he moved with his parents in 1913, and the concertino shows influences of Hindemith, Richard Strauss, and Mahler. Coetzee, judging by this piece, seems to like to keep his contrasting sections short. Once you get used to a theme, he pulls it away from you. I kind of like Anton Webern, except these are longer movements than that. Okay, the first movement, Allegro Energico. It's got a skipping melody at the beginning in both the viola and orchestra. Quickly changes to something more forlorn. The viola's dark tone draws out a lot of darker emotion, and the skipping motion is developed. There are a lot of quick changes in this movement, short sections that always go back to the skipping rhythm, which also doesn't stick around for long. The brief movement is 3 minutes and 41 seconds. Arrives at a slightly comic ending, with lower winds going down their scales to assist in arriving at the final cadence. Second movement, Andante cantabile, slow and stretched out, fairly somber. A change from the more upbeat, though heavy due to the viola, first movement. The viola comes in and plays a sort of soliloquy of a theme. This movement is short, too, at 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and there is some pretty nice orchestration. Orchestration in this piece in general. The woodwinds are used a lot. We get a big string statement, which the viola plays off of. The bass starts trudging in a downward, then upward circular motion as the viola solos. And this movement has an inconclusive ending that kind of sounds like a ... at the end of a sentence. Like the music is continuing in some imaginary space, or it's just stopped to think about something. And that's it. And we go to the third movement, lento quasi recitativo, almost like a speaking part in an opera, recitative or recitative. Lots of double stops in the opening theme, always exciting if you're a string fan. Double stops is playing two strings at the same time. Okay. This is the longest movement at 4 minutes and 45 seconds, so not very long. This eventually develops into something dancey, dance-like, I guess. Coetzee never seems to commit completely to a set rhythm or melody, as I mentioned before, and that's the case here too. The rug is constantly being pulled out, and we're constantly exposed to new musical profiles. It's almost like we're running through different rooms in a house, and they're all decorated differently, you know? It reminds me of that scene in the Bande à Part, the Godard film, Band of Outsiders, where the main characters try to set the record for going through the Louvre faster than anybody else. They try to set the world record for going through the Louvre. And there's a scene of them running through the Louvre. This piece kind of reminds me a little of that. It goes through triplet figuration, then dotted rhythm melody, then to something in quarter notes in 4/4 time. It sounds like the 4/4 time is maintained throughout, but eighth note triplets are used, and the piece ends with a gentle flourish. Okay. Then we get back to Henk Boddings, the guy, he of the 31-tone chord on the first piece. This is a sonata for viola and piano. These pieces seem to get smaller as they go on. That seems to be the way they've programmed this. Probably from around 1951, this work, so earlier than the opening one. This is a cyclic work, so think César Franck's famous violin sonata, where you keep hearing the same theme in all four movements. It keeps coming back to that. A single germ cell unites the three movements in a cyclic whole. I actually didn't catch what that was when I heard this, but I trust them. The allegro is march-like and dissonant, and it starts with a powerful dark sound in the viola. The piano plays heavy chords at the lower end. The material transforms with a sparkling piano figuration in its upper end. In this section, the piano draws most of the attention. A slower, quieter section comes, and the viola plays romantic-sounding melodic material as the piano chimes out thirds in its upper register. After this, the viola plays a pizzicato pattern that makes it sound like some kind of mandolin or lute. It was very surprising for me. Then the piano ushers in a new section, and the viola plays harmonics over that. Boddings has a lot of interesting ideas about sound, and you hear quite a few of them in this piece as well. It gets back to a ghostly melody in the higher end, sometimes slipping into harmonics. The opening forlorn, questioning, romantic material comes back in the viola in the recapitulation as the piano gently accompanies. The piece heads to a quiet section that goes to the end of the movement, which ends with two soft tonic chords in the piano. It's a feminine cadence. Anyway. Largo, second movement, slow and sad, with almost Baroque melodic embellishments, according to the notes. A dissonant piano chiming low-frequency chords starts us out. The viola builds to something more energetic, always sticking to eighth notes and dropping down to quarter notes to move down in frequency. The piano accompanies mostly in chords. At one point, the piano starts rippling a harp-like arpeggio figuration, and the viola briefly stops playing. After this interlude, the piano comes back to its chiming chords, though now in its middle register, and the viola plays more brightly in its upper range. It's a freeing section of the movement, as though a higher level of being has been attained. This happens at around 4 minutes and 30 seconds onward, and I rather liked this. It actually surprised me. So check that out. And the final vivace movement is, it says in the notes, exuberant finale in triple time. And I said, they call this exuberant, but it seems very measured to me at the beginning and rather heavy in the rhythm. This is really true of all the works on this album. And I understand the viola, it needs time to for its darker tone to resonate, but I felt like the rhythm didn't have any bounce to it on this album in general. And
I wrote for the last movement, angsty staccato becomes waltzy. That's how I described it.
Okay. Oh boy. It's heavy, and you can't really fault but it's hard. You can't fault the musicians really, because they change on every track. The only constant is the viola player. Mm-hmm. The piano heavily accents its chords as the viola plays a kind of staccato or marcato pattern in triplets. This changes as the viola starts playing drawn-out double-stopped chords over piano chords. The piano introduces a new section with a rippling arpeggiated figure, and the viola plays a moody melody. The viola and arpeggiated piano start heading toward a goal and reach it with the repeat of the opening material. A rather heavy, unexciting ending. I wonder if that's due to the players. I don't know, because it says it's supposed to be exuberant. I didn't really hear exuberance here. Final piece is by Henriette Bosmans. It's an Arietta Largo, written in 1917. Her years are 1895 to 1952. A romantic-sounding song without words, so that really puts it in the Romantic era. Mendelssohn, so we've made a full circle here. Mendelssohn is famous for the songs without words. It's very romantic, starting softly with piano chords and a singing viola line from the beginning. Nice melody. The viola is the main interest here. This is very much a piece for viola with piano accompaniment. It's a pretty and completely anodyne closer. It's nice. So, hidden gems. What does this jeweler say? Are they gems? Are they genuine? Yeah, I guess so. I thought these pieces were interesting enough. I mean, there's certain moments I liked in them, especially in the two Boddings pieces. But I don't feel like I've been missing anything by not having heard them until now. I mean, I liked it. I think it was a little heavier than it needed to be. But I was interested in hearing the Boddings. I'd like to hear some other works by him just to kind of see where he goes.
Are you saying these gems are fugazi?
Is that what they say, fugazi?
I don't know. It's nice to hear some viola works rather than just violin. I like the warm tone. Dutch works too altogether. I don't get to hear a lot of Dutch works.
Yeah, the only Dutch composer I think of off the top of my head is Louis Andriessen, who recently died. He did a lot of minimalist type and rock and roll sounding compositions.
Yeah, I found them interesting. I like the second Boddings a little bit more. And
I like that second movement, the way it kind of everything just kind of lifted at the end. It was really cool. And
you end up with a little sweet taste with the Bosmans. It's very warm and sweet. It's something different.
Certainly was.
Kind of interesting in that way, a little diversion and some viola. Nothing, I don't know if I'm going to go back to this one or not. It wasn't that big of a draw, but...
yeah, me too. I mean...
Variety is good.
Yeah. So. It's the old faint praise thing. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was good. It was worth hearing. That's what I would say. On to jazz.
All right. Well, we're going to do something a little different tonight in jazz because as any regular listeners will know, we are usually very instrumentally focused.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be, I don't think. I don't know.
Well, I like instruments.
I think of the vocal as the voice is just another instrument, really, you know. We're not hearing a sax, we're hearing a voice today.
Yeah, but I have to say that I'm a lot more picky when it comes to voice because, you know, the voice is the sound that's closest to our heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, with an instrument, any instrument, the tone that you make on an instrument is composed of many things. There's the physical instrument in itself, which will lend a lot, depending on what type of instrument it is, a larger influence on the overall tone. And then you have the own musician's touch, you know, even a piano, which you could say would maybe be the most neutral of instruments. You know, anyone can go up and play a single note. It's the same note. Inside of a larger composition or something, and any musician will get a different tone out of that. And then you have the wind instruments where the musician provides the breath of the instrument, on a brass instrument, your lips are vibrating and your breath is making an individual sound like that. But there's nothing so individual as the voice, right? So when it comes to a human voice, you either like it or you don't. And so that's where I start with my vocal picks. There's some voices that I just don't want to hear anymore of. It's a couple lines in and it's like, no, I can't stand it. You imagine being in a room with this person and they would drive you crazy. Anyway, that's how I feel about vocals. So I've got a growing vocalist, and one piece I was release I knew I was going to get to, and so I waited till I had a couple picks that I thought would be good to focus on. So tonight, the ladies sing.
Yay. I like vocals in jazz. I
know you do.
I like everything, though.
And that's why I don't do them very often, because I want to make you wait.
Yeah, you want to make me wait, so I get all excited. There you go.
No, normally, I'm more excited, like, I've got bass clarinet or trombone or something like that.
If you're doing a vibes or an organ one, I'm pretty excited about those.
Or organ we did last week. Anyway, it is vocals night, and it's ladies' night, and the ladies sing tonight.
Well, it's ladies' night. Oh,
yes,
what a
that's
night.
right.
I'm going to get sued now because I just sung a copyrighted song. But anyway.
But it was so departed from the original key and pitch that no one will notice. It won't show up on Shazam or whatever they are.
Oh, yes, it's ladies' night. Yeah,
anyway, we've got 3 ladies' vocals. I would like to find some male vocals that I really like too, but they don't come out as often. But
there weren't that many. Well,
not so many. Kurt Elling and
Kurt Elling. He's hit or miss for us, though. I think
I
like some things he does, but not others. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, I've got 3 that I think are worth talking about tonight. We're going to start out with a lady and her debut recording, which I think is really wonderful. And it's more than All Right With Me, but the title is It's All Right With Me. And this is on Westmont Records by vocalist Liz Terrell.
Yeah, I like this one too.
She's from Norfolk, Virginia, and at one time studied with Jane Monheit, a big name in vocal jazz. And for me, listening to a number of newer recordings vocal, I was drawn to Liz Terrell's voice from the rich tone of her voice that reminded me a lot of one of my favorite singers, Diane Reeves, who's sort of, I guess, would be my favorite jazz singer, although she doesn't record a lot these days. Not only the tone of her voice, though, Terrell has really nice style and enunciation, which is another thing I listen for. So enunciation is including pronunciation and the phrasing and the attention to the lyrics and how they're placed within the melodic line. That's very important. Also on this recording, especially for a debut, I was impressed with the choice of material and great arrangements and the musicianship of her bandmates here. So on this recording, we've got Liz Terrell on vocals, fine saxophone player who is also very impressive to me here, Eddie Williams, Daniel Clark on piano, Alan Parker on guitar, Chris Bridge on bass, and let me see if I can pronounce this, Emre Kartari on drums.
Is that with a Q?
What's that? No, Kartari, Kartari.
Right.
Yeah, but the first name is Emre. Emre?
Emre? Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, we'll just call him Kartari for that. So we've got a nice selection of material with variety here, starting out with People Make the World Go Round. It's a tune by Tom Bell and Linda Creed from the Stylistics.
Oh, yeah.
1972.
My childhood.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember these old stylistic tunes. This one starts out with a kind of ostinato bass groove. We get some nice sparse piano chords and a drum groove got a nice little rim click in there. And then the tenor sax comes in, doubling up on what the bass is doing. And when Terrell comes in on the melody, you'll get a good sense on this tune of her phrasing and enunciation. This right away reminded me of Diane Reeves. I don't know if she's an influence on her or not. After the first verse and chorus, there's a pause, a new super fast and funky bass groove. Some really nice bass playing on this album. Gets joined by the guitar, and then the other members join in as Liz returns, and things are a little bit more jazzy in feel. Williams gets an intense tenor sax solo here, and then Terrell comes back for another round of verse and chorus as they groove out at the end, where Terrell adds a nice vocalization and a repeat of the title lyric. Very nice arrangement of this old tune that I remember for a start. Track 2 and 3, we're going to go traditional with Cole Porter tunes. Track 2, It's All Right With Me. This begins with a slow drum groove. Terrell comes in on the melody alone over that groove. When the piano and bass join in, they get a kind of even Latin-y feel for a groove going along, which is a nice twist on this jazz standard. Terrell phrases everything really nicely here. She finds just the right spots to make things a little bit bluesy in the melody. On lines like "Such Tempting Lips," she really pushes that with a little pitch bend. Just the right spots, nice taste. Williams gives a restrained and tasty sax solo here. I like the sparse arrangement and space between the instruments. And what I like about Terrell is she's got a powerful voice. You can tell.
Yeah, I noticed this too.
She doesn't overdo it. She holds back, mature restraint, which is nice to see on her first big release here.
This is not a woman who sings like a bird. It's kind of she's got some tone in this voice.
Got some gusto,
really nice, and heaviness as well.
Richness to her voice. Impressive rising vocal cries at the end before the sax and piano groove out. And she assures us before we go away that it's all right, repeating those tags at the end. Then we get to another famous Cole Porter tune, Night and Day. Terrell starts this one out all on her own. The band joins in on the word day, right? Night and day. And they follow her along in a rubato waves of backing in the arrangement. Here, Terrell shows really good pitch control through her phrases. The next time around, it breaks into a mid-tempo swing groove. Parker gets a guitar solo with a nice compact tone and rhythmic punch. Some nice double stops going along in what he's playing there. Really cool. Terrell comes back for a final chorus, and they slow up and repeat the final line for a classy ending. Now, on to track 4, Blue Monk, Thelonious Monk tune, one of his most recorded tunes, and, often played at jam sessions by jazz players. We don't often hear it sung. However, going back, I think, 1961, I think Abby Lincoln was the first vocalist to add lyrics to it. And so here we start out with Terrell vocalizing the melody in unison with the bass, which makes a nice intro. It's very cool. She switches to the lyrics the next time around the melody.
So these are the lyrics from the 60s, right?
Right, right. I think Abby Lincoln actually wrote the lyrics here. So and the next time around, it's a 12-bar blues form. She does that, and the sax joins in for a few fills. Very great phrasing, nice blues sense from Terrell. Bridge gets a loping, woody bass solo here, and Parker, it's a very harmonically interesting guitar solo
I thought so too.
on here. You get some tremolo going, pitch bending, fancy picking too.
Kind of like one of those 1950s kind of like sad, lonesome chords that you get on those I'm trying to think of an example, but none's coming to mind. Anyway.
All right. Yeah, and another nice, playfully relaxed tenor solo from Williams. I really enjoyed his sax playing on this recording too. A great supporting musician. And then Terrell gets another verse and a final round of vocalizations to wrap up a nice little blues tune.
Yeah, the bass I wanted to mention is really noticeable on this track too, and I really liked his playing a lot. That was good.
Deep and woody, good bass playing.
Good recording too.
Track 5, Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, this has really become a jazz standard. I've heard a lot of people cover this tune time after time. Yeah.
What's the singer who did this?
Well, she did it first. Cyndi Lauper.
I know. I'm trying to think of the vocalist who died before she got really famous. It'll come to me. Eva Cassidy.
Oh,
that's it. Yeah, and so she did a touching version of this. And actually, I think Miles Davis recorded this too. It's a song that lends itself to lots of interpretations, and so. On this version here, they give it a new rhythmic feel with a very cool bass line that pushes it along. I like Terrell's phrasing and enunciation here too, transforming this kind of pop number that has lots of possibilities within it. Parker gets another imaginative guitar solo, and Clark's piano solo has nice rhythmic ideas and chimey chords. Terrell comes back for the final verse and chorus, and she ends it down in her warm lower register for a nice effect. We're going to go a little bit further back in time. Track 6, I'm Gonna Laugh You Right Out of My Life. Cy Coleman, Joseph McCarthy from 1955. This tune gets a medium even beat, tight cymbals dividing up the beat. It's a good vehicle to show off Terrell's phrasing. She gets some nice rubato kind of phrases at the end of the verse. I like the way she chokes off a bit on the vocals with Broke My Heart. It's a nice effect, emotional kind of reading into the line. Also on this tune, Clark has a delicate and pretty piano solo before Terrell comes back for a final go-around. Track 7 is a long melody of Fats Waller tunes. It's just called Fats Waller Melody. We get Ain't Misbehaving, the Jitterbug Waltz, and Honeysuckle Rose. It begins with a loping bass intro. Terrell starts out softly with a nice swing and bluesy phrases. Bridge has a melodic bass solo before Terrell joins in on the bridge of the tune, and a final chorus. The piano picks up from the final hold, gives an interlude into a rubato start to the next tune in the medley, Jitterbug Waltz. Terrell shows some smokiness and spouts here in between the cascading melody phrases of this tune. Clark has a trilly and rolling piano solo, and Terrell gets more bluesy on the final verse. After that, a drum solo transitions into the final tune of the melody. The bass adds a groove for Terrell to start out on Honeysuckle Rose. This is a very swinging, jazzy version. Terrell breaks into scat singing in the next time around the verse, and then she comes back to the lyrics with a great swing feeling and a nice bluesy ending. Nice arrangement tying these Fats Waller tunes together. Very classy. I like the sparse arrangements. All the band members add enough to push it along, add some extra spice, but Terrell's voice remains the centerpiece.
Yeah, nice to hear these songs sung too. You usually hear them played on the piano. They should really be performed more often, I think.
Yep. Track 8, an arresting version of this painfully pretty song by Elvis Costello, Almost Blue. You can hear, going back, Chet Baker performed this song a lot towards the end of his career. This is really great. Sparse piano intro. It's just piano and voice throughout the whole tune. Terrell does a great job on this one. Haunting melody, really shows off her phrasing and the different range of tones she can get from her voice. Overall, working through this melody, knowing just where, the sort of, how can I say, the climaxes and the emotions of the song come through, you get an overall lasting impression of the warmth of her voice here. Very touching rendition.
Yeah, Elvis Costello's version of this really kind of seared itself into my head when I first heard it, I believe in the 1980s. And it's a lot like this. She pretty much follows his template.
Yeah.
But Elvis Costello, when he sings it, he sounds kind of numb. And she goes for some shocked, sort of hesitant attack on the notes, like she's almost like can't believe what happened to her. You know, she has lots of blue notes and slightly flat notes in her line, which kind of makes it even more.
Yeah, pulls out the pain of it.
Enjoyed that. Yeah, so good.
Very good. Track 9.
I hope Elvis heard it.
Yeah, he should. Yeah. Well, he's married to what's her name, Diana Krall, isn't he?
Diana Krall, yeah.
Track 9's a song that often pops up at jazz jam sessions, but I don't hear it sung very often. Steve Kuhn's The Saga of Harrison Crab Feathers, which is a tune with a lot of interesting harmonic things going on. Here, we get a bass groove, some spacey guitar effects to make an interesting atmosphere to get this one going. Terrell takes the melody for a nice ride over the changing harmonies and different rhythmic feels. I think it's in 3/4, but it breaks up into different kind of rhythmic segments over the melody. Parker has a Lost in Space kind of reverby guitar solo here.
Yeah, practically swimming in this one. There's so much reverb on this guitar.
1950s robots moving along here. And Clark, in contrast, gets a more rhythmic piano solo. Bridge also has a bass solo in this one. And then Terrell comes back for another verse and some nice vocalizations to end it. We'll switch more traditional. Track 10, Don't Get Around Much Anymore, Duke Ellington. Straight swinging version of this classic tune. Terrell makes it sassy and fun on the first verse, handing it off to Clark for a rollicking piano solo. When Terrell comes back again, it's more jazzy, having fun with the lyrics, a bit of scat singing for a fun ending. So right into the traditional vein here. And track 11, go back to the 70s again, What the World Needs Now. Burt Bacharach, lyrics from Hal David. Now, what I'll say about this tune is I never liked this tune.
Well, neither did I. The thing is, these songs all came out in the 70s.
Exactly.
You know, like, What the World, Love, Sweet Love. And you heard Stevie Wonder sing Love's in Need of Love Today. And the 70s were just like a horrible time.
What I want to say,
terrible violence.
What I want to say about
really
this
horrible.
Is
I think of the Patty Hearst thing. And, oh, man.
But... you
think that's what the world needs now? It's what it's always needed.
We might need something else now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the problems with this song and Burt Bacharach songs in general, because Burt Bacharach actually he knew like jazz harmony really well, and he used it in his songs. But I think the problem with the original version, well, there's two problems. Both of which are solved in this rendition of it. The first problem was Dionne Warwick. Because what I realized,
song.
I have to say, because these songs, Burt Bacharach was it was on the radio all the time when I was growing up, and so all these songs were in the car and all around, and so I know all the words whether I want to or not from growing up. But so the other one from this time is Dionne Warwick's "Say a Little Prayer for Me." Right?
I remember that one too.
And it sounds so robotic and mannequin and I never liked that tune until I heard Aretha Franklin sing it.
Yeah.
And then it was like I was transported, on a soul rocket to a different level. And I could realize, okay, the singer and interpretation really makes a song go to a different place. So, if you have never heard that version of it compared to the Dionne Warwick version, it's a completely different emotional experience. The Aretha Franklin version of that is incredible. Now,
Dionne Warwick was very much a pop singer, though. She didn't really go for any soul or anything like that.
No.
So.
Yeah, kind of wouldn't in my estimation. But anyway, just my opinion. But what's interesting here is, as I said, I didn't care for this tune originally, but it's very much transformed here. So now the original version is 3/4. Right?
Yeah, I remember that. That swaying kind of
and
that's kind of one of the other things I didn't like about it.
They really bring out the syncopated nature of that, da da. Dun, dun, dun. But here, it's completely different. Actually, here, it's transformed into 4/4 time.
Yeah, I was trying to count it because I said I remembered this in 3/4, and I'm like, oh, this is in 4. This is really weird, you know.
So it's stretched out, and what I think it just makes it that much better, and the way that the new time signature works and allows for Terrell to phrase it more wonderfully, and I think it transforms the tune for me, and it really shows off the warmth of her voice. It gives a little bit extra space in the different time signature, and at this point, I'm thinking, well, I'm liking this. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to like anything she sings.
Okay,
she's going to be one of these singers that I'm going to really just like. Even in this tune, which I didn't want to like, but then I started to like it. Also here, Williams comes back again. A nice smoky tenor solo with bite and lots of space. He's impressed me through this whole album with his ability to change his approach on the sax to match whatever the atmosphere of the tune is. And then when Terrell comes back in with the strong final verse, Williams stays on with the sax to pepper in some sax fills, and they faded out nicely together. So I've found a new singer that I really like, because she just has a wonderful tone to her voice. Phrasing, enunciation is great. She's got a good sense of swing, nice blues, and for a young singer, she's got a mature restraint that keeps you listening more, and she's always got more in reserve that she could be pushing, but she holds that back with artistic sensibility and never overdoes it. So I am very pleased with this album. Check it out. Once again, it's debut album on Westmont Records. It's All Right With Me by Liz Terrell, and I'm excited to see what she does next.
Yeah, one of the things that is the difference between, say, jazz vocals and like rock vocals. Like rock vocals, they have effects on them, and they're generally not up front in the mix the way jazz vocals are. I really like the way jazz vocals are so clean, and then you get like these singers who can pronounce the words like very clearly, and there's no doubt as to what they're singing. I liked her. She's got this kind of heavy but smooth and powerful voice, and yet we never heard her at full power here. You see, as a classical music listener, I would always expect to hear one point where this person's just really going to sing out, and we don't get that here. And I really kind of appreciated that too. She's really serving the song. Just hearing you talk about this made me like it even more. Actually, I did like it when I heard it, but going through the songs like this, there are a lot of familiar songs on this that I really liked already. Time After Time, Almost Blue, and the transformation of What the World Needs Now too.
Yeah,
I think this might be a keeper. This is good.
It's a good one, and maybe the standout, the emotional vulnerability and just being out there with the voice on Almost Blue with only the piano. That one was a kind of made the mark for me as in terms of artistic statement. But it's all really good. So check it out. Gets my recommendation, and I don't give those out. Too. I don't give those out lightly for vocal albums.
Especially for vocalists, Let me tell you. I know from experience here.
All right, moving on. Another one. If that was Almost Blue, this is almost a debut because this artist has released an EP in the past, but this one is her first formal full-length, and this is by Anna Laura Quinn. Open the Door. On Outside in Music. And so Anna Laura Quinn is a vocalist who's now she's getting some buzz and attention in the jazz press. She grew up listening to jazz music in San Francisco, but then she moved down to New Orleans to do some jazz studies in a master's program at the University of New Orleans. And she performed at the 50th Annual New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in 2019. 2018, she released a debut EP, I Feel the Sudden Urge to Sing. And so now here she is in 2022 with a full-length album release. It's as I said, called Open the Door. So Anna-Laura Quinn on vocals, Ed Barrett on guitar, Ben Fox on bass, Brad Webb on drums, Kate Campbell-Strauss on tenor sax and Barry sax, Brent Rose on tenor sax, also on this recording. So this one has got some interesting arrangements and tune selections. We start out with Talking to the Sun, an Abbey Lincoln tune. Quinn starts this one out a cappella and a bit rubato, under which a percussive beat comes in, and she continues above that. She's got a kind of tight, almost nervous vibrato in her longer notes, which I picked up on kind of right away, especially after the previous recording as being kind of unique. Bass and guitar join in after the next verse of this tune, and we get a unexpected treat on this album is the flute work, which is, I believe, from Rose here. It's kind of a nice floating flute solo. Next you get a tenor sax solo. I think this is from Campbell-Strauss, looking at the performer's notes. Quinn comes back for another verse, and the sax and flute add some harmony lines for support. She ends up with a nice phrase of intervals to the final note. Track 2, Comes Love. This is an old tune, 1939, Sam H. Sept, with lyrics by Lou Brown and Charles Tobias. We get a guitar intro, a tense interval in there in the guitar, into some chords, and then a loping bass line. Quinn swings the melody with a lilt to her phrasing in the higher register. The saxes provide some backing, and there's a relaxed tenor solo. Quinn comes back for another round, ending with a breathy phrase into a little coda tag of bass sax and some vocalization. I think with this singer, Anna Quinn, her strength is in her kind of phrasing. She doesn't have a thick, strong voice. It doesn't have the fullness that you might expect, but she has kind of a enthusiastic, swinging kind of style that carries her through the tunes, and I think that's kind of
she's got a bright voice as opposed to Liz Terrell, who's kind of more heavy, and she's got energy as well. So she's going to be more on the Ella Fitzgerald side rather than, say, the Sarah Vaughan side. And I like there's kind of a breathiness to a lot of her approach to some of these songs. I do like that. I like it when people use the mic to kind of get their breathy quality in there. I do like that.
Track 3, Speak Low, Kurt Weill, with lyrics by Ogden Nash.
It's Kurt Weill, I think pronounced.
Weill, who wrote lots of great jazz standards. Very funky vamping guitar intro from Barrett with a nice flute solo again here. Quinn phrases the waltzing melody nicely with supporting sax and flute lines. They break it down to some rubato pauses before continuing with another verse. Rose has another flute solo in this one, and it's cool and breathy. Quinn comes back for a final verse with a rubato start, and they vamp out on the end, repeating speak low, with some flute fills and final drums.
We're going to hear some other flute solos on this album, and I think it's a really nice choice considering the quality of her voice, which I said is kind of breathy and energetic and high. Right. It just complements her so well. It was a nice choice, I thought.
Yeah, I like the flute. Track 4, Very Good Advice, Sammy Fain, Bob Hilliard tune. Quinn sings the melody over a tightly harmonized vocal arrangement. I guess it's herself overdubbed. It's swinging, cute, and nostalgic, but it only lasts about a minute and a half, and then it's over. But a nice little tidbit.
Yeah, this was really short.
There. Then we're going to go classic jazz standard, Cole Porter, Love for Sale, bass ostinato start, sparse guitar, harmonized sax lines to make the mood here. Quinn sings it light and smoky to the even subdivided beat treatment that they give this tune. I like a relaxed phrasing and little bluesy touches. Barrett has a chordy guitar solo, and Fox a rhythmic bass solo over the drum heartbeat kind of beat that's formed under it. Quinn comes back for a vocalized verse with a lot of bluesy phrases before getting back to the lyrics. She keeps the bluesy, lilting approach as they repeat to the end.
Yeah, I think Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga had covered this song.
Yeah, everyone does this
as
song.
well.
Yeah, often covered standard. Now we're going to get something a little unusual. It's a very nice melody to this tune, an Ellis Marsalis tune, Cry Again. It begins with a rubato guitar intro for this pretty melody. Quinn comes in over just the guitar. She's a little smoky and breathy here between the higher notes. Barrett goes round on his own for a bit, keeping the melody, bass, and chords nicely outlined on the guitar, all on his lonesome. Quinn joins back in to the end with the final verse. Just voice and guitar makes a kind of vulnerable impression, but it works well for her in this tune. Then we're going to get to the title track, number 7, Open the Door, Betty Carter tune. Lightly waltzing cymbals and airy sax lines over the bass set a dreamy mood. Quinn sings the melody loosely and relaxed, and it goes with the sparse arrangement. Well, the saxes kick in for some lifting support. Tenor saxes have a nice arrangement of answering each other, and then each one gets a smooth solo of their own. Quinn comes back in, and the melody calls for some swooping phrases, which she handles pretty well, but I feel this one's a stretch of her voice a bit.
You think so?
I thought,
okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was a bit of a Marilyn Monroe type teasiness to her voice here. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I do like the overall lazy feel of the tune. It's enjoyable, but I was kind of a little bit worried thing on the stretching there. Just my own feeling. Track 8, a tune we heard 2 weeks ago. On that wonderful bass clarinet Lawrence of Arabia album, The Frenchman there. Single Petal of a Rose, Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn tune. Here, rather than bass clarinet, we've got big baritone sax on the rubato melody phrases, which Quinn has made sort of answering phrases too with harmonized vocal phrasing. It's a very unique arrangement. The vocals get some bluesy phrases to them, and there are some pauses and interesting harmonies to end it. This is a very unique approach to this, the vocals set against Barry sax.
And I'm guessing those vocals are double tracked in the studio.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
They're kind of So it's not a live performance really. Yeah.
She's harmonizing with herself. Track 9, Wouldn't It Be Lovely? Lerner and Lowe, of course, from My Fair Lady.
I got to tell you something about this song later.
Okay. Starts with 2 tenor saxes that give a question and answer intro, which is joined, interestingly, by some bowed bass. A contrasting chunky groove on guitar sets the tempo for the song. Some bluesy sax figures. It's laid back tempo that Quinn sings the tune over in a relaxed way with a good sense of swing. Barrett has a funky and fun guitar solo and then a tenor sax solo after that. Quinn comes back for another verse, bluesy fun, before making a neat and dainty end. So overall, it's a fun listen. I like Quinn's rhythmic sense. I like their interesting approach to some melodies that create a fun atmosphere. The arrangements are unique and the instrumentation is interesting with the flute. I like the Barry sax. All the musicians are great, and I like her take on an interesting arrangement of some of these tunes. I think she doesn't have a very powerful voice. It's good in the higher register, swinging and lilting kind of thing. Meets her nature. I think she captures like a New Orleans vibe and style very well, and she can be an entertaining singer. We'll see what she comes up with next.
On this album, I really like the program. I thought it was a really interesting choice of tunes that she sang, and they're very varied. Some of them really famous, some of them not. Just the fact that she studied in New Orleans and did an Ellis Marsalis song. You just don't get to hear those, and it's really just great to have that here. Again, I mentioned earlier the choice of the flute as a solo instrument on this album complements her voice exceptionally well. It kind of it's because they're kind of similar. There's a breathiness to her voice, and I think the flute kind of makes you aware of that. So I think it's a really smart recording. And I was also happy to hear her rendition of "Wouldn't It Be Lovely," "Wouldn't It Be Loverly" at the end, because my experience with this song. In 8th grade, we already talked about West Side Story.
Yeah, we did.
And this one was the 8th grade musical, My Fair Lady, where I played the role of Professor Zoltán Karpathy, the Hungarian linguist. But the girl they got to sing, we were all 13 years old when we put this on, and they had to do Eliza's Cockney accent, so we just kind of thought, it had to sound awful. We didn't know what a Cockney accent sounded like, and apparently neither did our director. So she kind of came up with this kind of like almost guttural, like, ow kind of sound,
like Fran Drescher or something doing that.
Like she was Iggy Pop or something, And when she sang this song, she tried to sing it in that voice, and she was going, "Ow, wouldn't it be lovely?" I still hear it like that today, and so I'm just relieved to hear a really good performance of that song. Oh boy, just my musical past, boy. So many great songs were ruined by the 1970s and my school life. But younger musicians today are making it all right, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, it's good therapy for you.
Yeah, I need it. That's why I'm doing this. I'm sure I was born because I had to do therapy for some life that I lived before that was really horrible.
It's all your musical karma. It's just coming out.
Coming back to me. Oh, well.
Yes.
At least I get to hear it all. That's cool. I'm happy with that.
All right, now the whole reason that I decided to put this musical episode of vocals together that got me into a vocal mood is my current favorite vocalist. Since Diane Reeves is not recording much anymore, I've been smitten by the recordings of this lady, the wonderful Catherine Russell.
Yeah, and so have I. Catherine Russell is an adult music favorite. Okay, so she can do really no wrong in our ears, unless she actually does. But I doubt she will.
Yeah, and so this is her latest release, just out April 1st on Dot Time Records. Send for Me, and anytime she sent for me, I would go running because this is the voice that has everything that I want to hear. As I said, my favorite vocalist, just in terms of pure tone, is Diane Reeves. But Catherine Russell has just about everything that I look for in a vocalist, in that she inhabits a tune and makes you believe every line of it, and brings complete joy to sing. So
that's a big plus for me.
Yeah,
I really look for
plus, that. When you listen to her sing, she's going to put you in a good mood, and she has all the right arrangements and musicians surrounding her to do that. Now, so she's got a really interesting, background because she comes from a musical pedigree. Her father, Luis Russell, was Panamanian, lived in New Orleans and then New York City. He was a jazzman, pianist, composer himself, and he was the musical director for Louis Armstrong in the 40s. And her mother, Carlene Ray, was also a jazz musician, played bass, a vocalist. I think she went to a bunch of music schools, Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, and performed with a lot of famous musicians too. But Catherine Russell, for most of her career, was kind of a backup singer, working with the artists like Paul Simon. You can see her on YouTube backing up David Bowie, Steely Dan, even Cyndi Lauper, artists like that. And she did a lot of TV and radio commercials, things like Bud Light, Dairy Queen, and some other commercials.
Good God,
this fabulous voice, just in the music business, but not out in front where it should be.
So she's there now. So that's what matters.
So she started to come into her own in this new century. Started out 2006 with Cat. Then 2008, Sentimental Streak. Inside This Heart of Mine, 2009. Strictly Romance in 2012. Bring It Back, 2014. And then more recently, Harlem on My Mind, 2016, and Alone Together, 2019. Both of those most recent recordings got Grammy nominations. And I feel she should have won. Because I feel she's, as a singer, head and shoulders above the picked winners in that categories. But that's why I don't talk about awards, because
I'm just going to say right now, just for the listeners, if you want to make a bet on next year's Grammy Awards, which they haven't even announced who's nominated yet, but Catherine Russell will almost inevitably be nominated. But again, I want her to win the Grammy. I think this is going to be one of my top albums of the year, without a doubt, just to, kind of tell you the punchline before the joke. But the winner of the category this year is going to be Cécile McLaurin-Salvant, because she always wins, and she's got a new album this year, and it's good. But I mean, I would prefer for this to win, because I just love her
unmentionable
style so much.
For me. We'll just skip over that.
So anyway, if you want to make a bundle, a packet, you should bet on Cécile McLaurin-Salvant to win the vocal award next year, because it's just inevitable. They don't seem to know who the other singers are. They just keep picking the same ones.
And you can bet on me not allowing that to appear on this podcast. But anyway,
okay. I heard it though. I thought it was good. Anyway, I know you're not a fan, but I like her, and she's good.
Back to Catherine Russell. The other great thing about her, what she's done, is she's carved this unique niche of, and she's gradually honed this approach through the albums that I mentioned, her catalog now, where she has found this approach to mine this wealth of forgotten jazz and R&B repertoire that she brings back and makes completely fresh, with great arrangements, and adds, her wonderful singing style to that. And so this is, like about the fifth album among her releases that does that, digs deep into this American music catalog, finding these little gems, and she gets them all polished and sparkly, and she knows how to, treat a song. And she's going to take on a little musical voyage through here.
Yeah. I want to say something about, you're talking about her approach in general, but in order to do what she does, she has to have a really deep understanding of jazz history, because the vocals in each of these songs just fit the song so well. It's not just that she inhabits, like you said, she inhabits the song, but part of what that means is that she has like a complete understanding of the style. It's almost like she's a singer from that period singing it.
Exactly. And
it's really incredible.
She comes from this musical background. Her parents, obviously, she grew up around this music, so she knows how to interpret these different period styles. And what's more, she's amassed a band of musicians who transport you back to that time, and it's almost like remarkable. You're listening to a band in Harlem, but in modern, CD quality sound.
It's incredible.
These musicians are great, and so on this album with Catherine Russell on vocals, also adding some little percussion accessories and hand clapping. We've got her normal collaborator here, Matt Munisteri, on guitar, who's also her musical director and plays banjo on this album too. He's a really great musician. Tal Ronan on bass. We've got Mark McLean on drums. Mark Shane on piano. Also, some tracks, Sean Mason on piano as well. Trumpet, Jean-Eric Kelso. Trombone, Jean Allred. Various reeds, including clarinet, Evan Arntzen. Paul Nidzilla on bari sax on track 9. Mark Lopman, tenor sax on track 2, along with Aaron Heck, tenor sax. Philip Norris on tuba, which we'll get to when we get to it, and Paul Kahn adding some hand claps here. And so the musical journey of through tunes here is it needs a little bit of detail too. Otherwise, we don't do good service to this. We start out with a tune, "Did I Remember," by Harold Adamson and Walter Donaldson. Now, this was recorded by Tommy Dorsey and his orchestra, with a vocal refrain by Edith Wright, recorded in 1936. So it's an old one.
Yeah.
And it starts fittingly with a trumpet and clarinet intro. Russell sings this melody, takes you back in time. You get a joyous little clarinet solo by Arntzen here over some fun plinky piano by Mark Shane.
That clarinet solo is that licorice stick.
Yeah, the licorice stick
solo that Benny Goodman
way
used to
back
get,
in time. It's time period appropriate. And Shane gets a nice little solo here before the band arrangement comes back in. Wonderful time appropriate trumpet solo by Jean-Eric Kelso. These guys make you feel like you're listening to an old record with that perfect swing style phrasing and tones, but it's in modern
in a modern recording
quality.
Studio with no background noise.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah,
Russell comes back in for one more time around, just right in that time period style to take it out. So going back to the 30s for the first one. Track 2, "Send For Me," a tune by Ollie Jones. This was written by Ollie Jones, performed by Nat King Cole featuring the McCoy Boys. This one was a #1 hit on the U.S. R&B chart and #6 on the pop chart in 1957. So now we're going to go a little bit more R&B style here. It gets a bluesy groove. Russell digs in, adds nice bluesy embellishments, hand claps here. Matt Munisteri has a guitar solo that's both jazzy and bluesy. Russell comes back in over some stop time, builds the phrases up with the help of the band. There's a nice piano solo by Sean Mason with blues licks, nice trills in there too. Russell comes back in once more. The sax is swinging hard underneath her, adding some fills. There's a dirty tenor sax solo that takes it out to the end. So a nice resurgence of a tune from the 50s. I like how she balances out the jazz and sort of R&B
there's a real soulful
tunes.
approach to this song. I said, it brought back that era, really magical time as far as music went, about everything else.
Now we're going to get another time capsule tune, "At the Swing Cats Ball," and this is credited to her father, Louis Russell and William Campbell. But I think this was made into a popular tune by Louis Jordan, going back to 1939. Louis Jordan was a sax player and band leader that innovated the jump style blues that was kind of popular for dancing back in the 30s and 40s. This one's got a great horn arrangement that continues with tight hits as Russell comes in, starts singing the tune. The lyrics refer back to the instruments playing at this ball, and when she mentions the trumpet or trombone, they join in an answering phrase. So it's kind of a cute musical interaction. After the verse, we get a trombone solo and then trumpet and tenor sax. Another full band interlude, which brings Russell swinging back in, and the band carries it on over the huge backbeat, like a swing backbeat for a while, and then Russell gets a final farewell stanza over the beat before it closes out. So really great retro feel, bringing you back to that time period. Now we're going to get a little ballad, "Make It Last," the title track. Dick Hames, a singer himself, and songwriter, and Bill Saxton tune that was recorded by Betty Carter on her album Out There from 1958. It starts out with a nice trumpet intro. This is a great vehicle to showcase Russell's sublime phrasing. She inhabits this song, makes you believe every word. That's one of the keys to a great singer. That was actually a criticism of Frank Sinatra. Someone said, "That fool, he believes every word that he's singing."
Yeah.
And that's why the audience gets
that's why we still listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. The horns provide subtle support behind her. The trumpet returns for a middle melodic interlude, and then Russell comes back for the final verses and repeats the line "Make it last" over pauses for a nice subtle dramatic ending. She's always in control, and she makes it sound so easy.
This particular tune has real vocal riches in it because it's got like repetitive material, but it never sounds repetitive because of the singer's phrasing. Russell, she has so many subtle shades of phrasing and tone, and it keeps your ear engaged throughout. Really fantastic performance here.
She can really do wonders with ballads too. I'm trying to think. The recording before last
was one Harlem on my mind. That one,
there's the one tune on the ballad that just always gives me chills when I listen to it. Don't take your love from me.
No,
that what I really love that she always does, but on especially on a ballad, a song that will have multiple verses, maybe a solo section. She's very keenly aware of where the climax of the song should be, and she saves it up just for that point. And so she really structures and saves enough in the tank and gets that just the tension on the right point of the arc of the song every time. It's just in her nature, and she can't be beat when it comes to just knowing how the song is structured and where she's going to use her voice there. And this is a really nice arrangement of this one too. But that one, "Don't Take Your Love From Me," that's my favorite sort of hair-standing song of hers in the ballad thing. Track 5. Let's get a little obscure here, going back to the 50s, going back to New Orleans. Joe Liggins. This is an early 50s swinging jump blues by Joe Liggins and the Honey Drippers. Here, they slow it down a bit compared to the original style, make it a real New Orleans style with tuba bass and banjo. Russell sings it bluesy and sassy. They change up the beat for a section of the melody. It's got kind of a double chime feel with drum toms. And then we get a tuba solo. Wow, you don't get that very often, from Philip Norris. And then Munisteri shows his banjo plunking skills here. So he gets a little banjo work in. And then Russell comes back in for another verse. And finally the banjo takes it out over the tuba. So, it's kind of transformed to be more New Orleans than the original version. You can look up and listen to the original version, but you get a nice little New Orleans touch to it. And nice choice. Track 6, "If I Could Be With You." Wow. James P. Johnson, who was a kind of stride piano pioneer. Lyrics by Henry Creamer. He's a dairy farmer or something. It goes back to 1927, first recording by Eva Taylor on lyrics. This one's got kind of a loping beat with a trombone intro. Munisteri stays on the banjo from the previous tune onto this track for some nice plinking accompaniment. This was really short, no sustained banjo. Gets a nice rhythmic effect here under Russell's swooning vocal, and the trombone plays along too. Sean Mason gives a nice old-time piano solo. We get a bluesy trombone solo from Jean Alred with a little encouraging stop time thrown into it. And Russell comes back for another time through the vocals with a great phrasing. We end up with a nice sweet trombone lick. So again, she has this kind of deep digging song catalog kind of repertoire that she brings something out that's surprising on all of her records, and is always waiting to see what's coming next year. Then we've got track 7, "You Can Fly High," Earl King and John Vincent tune. Now, King was a important figure in blues and in New Orleans rhythm and blues. This tune, original version, Ace Records, 1957. A little bit obscure. Russell starts it out alone, slowly, and then the horns riff in. on a little bit more up-tempo, and then when the beat kinks in, it's even faster yet to a kind of R&B romping beat. There's a dirty tenor sax solo from Arntzen, and Munisteri gets a guitar solo as well. Russell is having some real R&B fun here. I think she's shaking the tambourine on this tune as well, and she comes back for another verse. There's a funky piano solo from Mark Shane, and Russell joins in again with more horns, pushing it to the finish. So a nice kind of New Orleans influenced rhythm and blues fun tune here. Track 8, we're going to get a jazz standard that has kind of the composer has an interesting history anyway. East of the Sun, West of the Moon.
I just want to say, as if this album wasn't good enough already, this is really my favorite song. I really love hearing this, so I was really thrilled by this.
Now, the composer of this tune, Brooks Bowman, was a budding songwriter and a scholar, really. He attended Stanford and then transferred and graduated from Princeton. Unfortunately, he was killed in a car accident just before his 24th birthday in 1937. And now this tune, East of the Sun, was first recorded by bandleader Hal Kemp in 1934, and then years later was made into a big hit, of course, by Frank Sinatra, recording with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, and it's been a jazz standard ever since. Russell starts it out over the rubato guitar chords and arpeggios of Munisteri. It gets a medium tempo swing with the entrance of the rest of the rhythm section. Again, it's a joy to hear Russell's phrasing and uplifting voice on this standard. You've heard this 100 times, but she makes it new and fresh. It's like a brand new hit song you heard on the radio, the way she carries this melody. Munisteri gets a great guitar solo here. Tal Ronan has a nice bouncy bass solo, and then Russell comes back in, swinging it more loosely on her final trip through here and carefree to the end.
Yeah, wonderful.
She just inhabits and makes it like, something you've never heard before. Now, here, track 9, In the Night. We're going to go a little more obscure. Here, Norman Mapp, who was a jazz vocalist and composer, protege of Dinah Washington, who heard him singing in a club, encouraged him to write and sing more. He's had his songs recorded by Count Basie and Betty Carter. This one comes from his 1961 album, Jazz Ain't Nothing But Soul. He's one of these guys who's got this deep baritone voice, like a Johnny Hartman kind of voice, but probably most people won't be familiar with his tunes. Anyway, it's a great one, a slow tune with a minor bluesy theme that gets a few harmonic twists through the melody. Russell brings out the blues in this one. We get some nice piano tinkling by Sean Mason here. Great thick horn arrangement with bari sax down on the bottom that sticks out. Mason gets a chimey and rolly piano solo over lazy bari sax low lines that just sort of sit under the piano all on their own. Russell comes back and pushes it to a final climax and interestingly resolves on an unexpected major chord, since most of the tune is in that minor kind of bluesy feel. Track 10, You Stepped Out of a Dream, famous tune, Nacio Herb Brown, Gus Kahn, 1940 tune that was centerpiece of the 1941 musical Siegfried Girl. Starts out with Munisteri intro over a bouncing swing beat. It's an uplifting melody. Russell makes it really soar. She knows how to build phrases and tension, but she always saves up for that climax in the tune. Nice piano solo by Sean Mason here, and Munisteri on guitar. Bouncy solos in the middle. Russell joins back in for another round, and then Munisteri takes it out with some guitar improv over the ending vamp. We're going to get track 11 next, Blue and Sentimental, a Count Basie tune, co-writing credits to Mac David, Jerry Livingston. This was recorded by the Basie Band first in 1938, once more 1947. They had a vocal by Bob Bailey, and Nat King Cole recorded it in the same year. And jazz fans will also know this as a title of a great jazz album by Ike Quebec, tenor sax player from 1961. Mason gives a nice piano intro. The beat's lazy and laid back. Russell sings and swings it easily with a lilt. Mason gets to kind of tinkle the blues nicely on a piano solo before he passes it over to Monasterio as a tasty solo too. And then Russell comes back in on the B section, goes around the verse once more. It's got that nice bassy kind of bluesy melody to it. Track 12, another obscure tune, Sticks and Stones. It's got 3 songwriters credited: Kavanaugh, Razaf, Palmer. This one goes way back to the 30s. Henry Red Allen and his orchestra, in 1936 or so. It was also the title of a movie short with the music included in it from 1943. This one's got that great old-time swing feel to it. Trumpet intro takes it into a nice swinging feel with the rest of the horns. Over to the piano with a bouncy rhythm, and then Russell comes swinging in on the tune. It's a fun swinging romp with solos from trombone, trumpet, piano, tenor sax, all appropriate to the style of that period of 30s jazz. Russell comes in for another round to whoop it up with some energy to the end. And we end up with $1 Million Smile. Porter Roberts and Lionel Hampton. This was first recorded in 1945 by Lionel Hampton and his orchestra, and I think you can find instrumental versions of this, and around the same time a vocal version with Lionel Hampton and the great Dinah Washington. It starts out with a slow groove and with rim clicks on the drum, acoustic guitar on this one by Monastery for an intro. Russell sings it with a smile that comes right through, fitting to the track title. Nice piano fills from Mason on this. This tune has a lot of nice chord changes in the B section that sort of give it a feeling of modulating around and lift it up. Monastery gets a nice acoustic guitar solo here, and Russell rejoins after that on the B section and goes through it once more, which slows down to a perfect finish. And when I heard this album,
I just want to say that she bends her voice down away from the resolving note at the end. It was really kind of a cool effect. It's
very nice, yeah. So with this one, when I heard it, I thought more of the same, which is fabulous praise in the case of her, because this is what she's doing, mining kind of forgotten songs. She'll give you one well-worked jazz standard, but then some forgotten nuggets, and then also mixing in a healthy dose of old rhythm and blues tunes. Sometimes, not on this album so much, but in previous ones, some kind of suggestive and provocative blues, wink-wink lyrics that are a lot of fun. All of which she has the voice to carry, the appropriate style to bring the best out of, and then, as I said, that sense of inhabiting a song, making you feel and believe the lyrics. Add to that, she's got this superb band that is orchestrated and arranged to match each tune for what it requires for the appropriate historical style, but making them all sound and smell like they're fresh baked. And so
it smell like they're fresh baked. Oh my God.
I can listen to as many recordings as she can find material of like this.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same. Yeah. I'm in the same camp. You say more of the same, but it's more of the same for her because no one else is doing this, and no one does it as well as her.
No,
this is a real gift. I'm just really happy to have it.
She's giving you a musical lesson of great American music that's been lost in time and reviving it. It's not, this is not like nostalgia.
Just under the weight of the sheer amount of music that kind of comes after all of it, This is just finding things and breathing fresh air into them, and they all sound great. Crate digging, as it were,
Yep.
Yeah, I thought at the end of the year, Russ and I, pick our 10 favorite. Like, I'll pick the 10 jazz albums I like the best that we did, and he'll pick the 10 classical ones. And this one's, I only have 9 picks left because this is definitely going to be at the top of the list.
Will be on mine,
I just know it because we just love her, and she's Catherine Russell, and this is just such a great record. So that's definitely going to be on my list. You can kind of knock that one off your checklist now.
Yeah, she deserves it. She's just, she makes you feel good. If you're ever in a bad mood, you just put on Catherine Russell, and you're going to be joyous. I think she must have that kind of goodness in her soul and personality in order to be able to radiate that kind of energy through songs. So can't get enough of her.
Yeah, fantastic. I really like this record, as we said.
Yeah, so there you go. That's my... I don't know when we'll get another... I got a long vocal list, but...
you can do whatever you want.
I can always do that. But of course, Catherine Russell. But Liz Terrell, I'm pretty excited about that voice too. That's a voice I can listen to.
You have to pick that one up. I just checked. It's not on a CD yet, but it looks like it might come out soon.
I think I'll write to her and tell her, hey, let's see, get that out on CD. And
Catherine Russell, meanwhile, I pre-ordered that and it hasn't gotten here yet. Things are really being held up.
Yeah, and her last release, that didn't come out on streaming for a long time, but I'm glad the new one came out right away. So she's going the
other way. That's good. I prefer when things come out on CD first.
Yeah, but this new one has just kind of come out right away, so on both CD and streaming, so that's good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
That's going to be it for this week.
Interesting week here. Any hints for next week? You got in the cauldron there, stewing away.
Well, next week is things people listen to these at different dates, but we will be recording on Easter Sunday.
Ooh.
And I've got a few like classical. Well, next week we'll have only one classical religious kind of thing going. I want to kind of. Let me just mention, just for listeners, I'm not going to talk about a Bach St. John Passion or St. Matthew Passion this year, but 2 good ones did come out, in case you want to hear them. There's a St. John Passion by John Elliott Gardner that's really fantastic on Deutsche Grammophon. You should give that a listen. And if you're looking for a new St. Matthew Passion, listen to the one by Pygmalion, conducted by Raphael Pichon, with a vocalist I really love on it. Sabine Devielle is on it. So that's for your traditional Easter fare. But I've got some British choral works by contemporary composers that I wanted to investigate further for next week. And they're 1 or 2, because a lot of sort of religious choral works come out at this time of year, and they you wind up kind of talking about them past Easter. So maybe a few of those. We'll have 1 of those next week. And then I got a Baroque and a pretty interesting horn, French horn chamber works disc. Actually, there might be an orchestra work on there too. I'm not sure.
All right, I'll see what I can find spiritually matching to the
Easter
season.
Sunday.
See what we can do. All right, well, there you go. Some interesting music that we don't always get to hear. Some viola and other works, and vocal jazz that will round out episode 58 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. Once again, please remember you can find links to almost all the music except for the first recording, which was on Hyperion, not available on streaming, but everything else you'll be able to get to on Spotify and Apple Music, or click on the whole episode playlist available on Deezer. We can also follow us at Adult Music Podcast as a username. Please do like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to us on. And again, we'd like to thank Fast Signs of Staten Island for our wonderful neon glowing logo that shows up nicely on any platform that we're on and is on our business cards. So thanks again, guys, for that. And we'll see you again next week for episode 59, recorded on Easter Sunday and available to download the next morning or that evening in the U.S. So until then, have a good week, and we'll see you again for the next episode.